I'll go there, Matthew.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Planning Committee meeting of April the 5th, 2016. I will mention that Councillor Brenda Johnson unfortunately had some minor injury and is not able to be here today, so as Vice Chair, I'll stand in. I also want to welcome Donna Skelly as our 10th member on Planning Committee. Welcome, Donna. And we now will, for committee's information, require 6 at Planning Committee for quorum. So we have it today. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to ask now, calling the meeting to order. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are webcast live by the City of Hamilton, temporarily archived on the City's website. Other individuals and the media may also be audibly and or visually recording this meeting. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, there are a number of added written comments. With respect to item 6.1, the application for approval of a draft plan of condominium common element by Urban Solutions Planning and Land Development Consultants, Inc. for lands located at 98 Shoreview Place, Stony Creek, PED 16076, Ward 10. There's added item 6.1I from Lakewood Beach Community Council. With respect to item 6.2, the application for an amendment to the Town of Ancaster zoning bylaw number 87-57, draft plan of subdivision and draft plan of condominium for lands located at 1261 Mohawk Road, PED 16080, Ward 12. There's 2 correspondence. 6.2I is from Michael Kajny, 14 Honeysuckle Crescent, and 6.2II is from Bernice and Lynn Simpson, 22 Honeysuckle, Hamilton. With respect to item 6.4, the applications for amendments to the Urban Hamilton official plan and the City of Stony Creek zoning bylaw number 3692-92 for lands located at 288 Glover Road, Stony Creek, PED 16084, Ward 11. There are 5 added written comments. 6.4I is from Nora Jameson, Watershed Planner, Hamilton Conservation Authority. 6.4II is from Lillian and Reno Cortiula, 223 McNeely Road, Stony Creek. 6.4III is from Gary and Cindy Carr, 250 and a half Fruitland Road, Stony Creek. 6.4IV is from Arden Semper, Brandhaven Homes Fruitland Inc., who is the applicant. And 6.45 is from Ward Councillor Brenda Johnson.
Thank you, Ida. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Moved by Councillor Collins, second by Councillor Connolly. All in favour? Is there anyone who has a declaration of interest this morning? Seeing none. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 22nd meeting? Moved by Councillor Aidan Johnson, second by Councillor Pasuta. All in favour? Thank you. We'll go right into delegations requests. We have 4-1 is John Arians, representing Habitat for Humanity, wishing to attend when the staff report regarding waiving the applicable planning fees for charities and not-for-profit organizations is on the agenda, and that's a future meeting. Can I have a motion to approve the delegation request? Moved by Councillor Green, second by Councillor Collins. All in favour? Thank you. Consent items. We have 5.1 is the annual report on building permit fees. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, may I have a motion to receive the report? Moved by Councillor Robert Pasuta, second by Councillor Green. All in favour? Thank you. Now we're going to go on to delegation public hearings today. We have item 6.1 before us is the application for approval of draft condominium common element for Urban Solutions Planning and Land Development Consultants Inc. for lands located at 98 Shoreview Place, Stony Creek. And members of the public, in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act, please be advised that if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make a submission to the Council of the City of Hamilton before Council makes a decision regarding the draft plan of condominium common element, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Council of the City of Hamilton to the Ontario Municipal Board, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Municipal Board unless, in the opinion of the Board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So I'm going to go into this and call down, if I'm not mistaken, Ida, I'm calling down, is Katie Rainho, is it? And I'm sorry, does staff have any, there's not a presentation today, correct? Ida, thank you.
Councillor, I guess if there's any, usually you waive the presentation
Correct.
if no one
Well,
comes
that's what I was
forward.
wondering, but it's not here, so I didn't want to jump something. So I take it there's no issue with this as far as staff. It's just an approval of a common element condominium. So can I have a motion to waive the presentation as the ward councillor? I have no issue with it. Moved by Councillor Connolly, seconded by Councillor Pasuta. All in favor? Carried. And I hope I pronounced Katie, is it? Thank you. Katie from Urban Solutions. Good morning, Katie. And I know you're here on behalf of Sergio. Gave me a heads up. You're here. Welcome. And it's going to be very brief, I understand. You're just trying to give us just an overview. So thank you. Yes, sir. And Ida, can we have that screen just brought down? Thank you. Just so we can see you. There.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Ida. Thank you, Katie.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Katie Rainho. I'm with Urban Solutions. With me today is also Matt Johnson of our office, and we are here on behalf of our client, King Tiss, Mr. Tom Weiss and Mr. Tony DiSilvestro for lands at 98 Shoreview. Madam Chair, before we begin, we'd first like to thank staff for all their hard work in preparing this report and bringing it to Planning Committee. The purpose of this application is to establish a draft plan of condominium common element, as you can see behind me. Yep. So the gray portion behind me on the image above is the proposed draft plan of common element. The purpose of this application is to establish a condo road network with 2 access points along Shoreview Place, 36 visitor parking spaces, and amenity and landscaped open space areas. And this will be implemented through Site Plan DA 13-235. We've reviewed staff's report and the conditions, and we have no objections. We've also reviewed the Lakewood Beach Community Council comments provided March 31st, and we feel that our January 12th Planning Committee meeting for 101 Shoreview Place, the property directly across the street, had addressed all the community's concerns. However, if there are any additional concerns or questions at this time, we will be more than happy to provide a response to those. Thank you.
Do I have any questions or comments? Questions from committee to Katie? Seeing none. And I'm going to ask a motion to receive your presentation. Moved by Councillor Collins, seconded by Councillor Skelly. All in favor? Thank you, Katie. And I'm going to also ask that the correspondence item 6(1) from Lakewood Beach Community Council. Can I have a motion to receive those written comments as well? Moved by Councillor Collins, Councillor Green. Sir, can we? Okay. To Katie? Because we received that. But okay. No problem, Katie. Thank you. Yes, she is. I welcomed her husband, and it was confirmed at council. Okay, and I also stated that we now need 6 for quorum because we have now 10 members. Our guidelines require that we have 9 minimum. Okay? Welcome. So, again, now we're going to go back, and I have a motion. I think we moved and seconded receipt of the Lakewood Beach Community Council correspondence. Moved by Councillor Collins, second by Councillor Green. All in favor? Carried. So on this, is there anyone here in the audience that wishes to speak on this item? I have to say it 3 times. Going once. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this item? This is 98 Shoreview Place. Going twice. Again, anyone wishing to speak to this item? 3 times. Closed off to the floor. Back into committee. Members, can I have a recommendation then? A motion to move the application? Moved by Councillor Connolly. Second by Councillor Aidan Johnson. All in favor? Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Katie. On now to item 6.2 is the application for amendment of the Town of Ancaster zoning bylaw number 8757, draft plan of subdivision and draft plan of condominium for lands located at 1261 Mohawk Road, Ward 12. And I understand Councillor is here this morning from the ward. I'm going to just read off first now. Members of the public, in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act, please be advised that if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the City of Hamilton before Council makes a decision regarding the zoning bylaw amendment, draft plan of subdivision, and draft plan of condominium, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Council of the City of Hamilton to the Ontario Municipal Board, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of the appeal before the Ontario Municipal Board unless, in the opinion of the Board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. We have received this morning added comments from Michael Kasny of 14 Honeysuckle Crescent and Bernice and Lynn Simpson of 22 Honeysuckle, Hamilton. May I have a motion to receive the added written comments? Moved by Councillor Connolly, second by Councillor Eden Johnson. All in favour? Okay, and I'm going to turn to the audience. Is there anyone wishing to address the committee this morning and the public regarding this application? We have a show of hands here. Perfect, thank you. So, and I also understand Joe DiCenzo, the owner, is here in attendance. Should we also have any questions, you're here. Good morning, Joe. Thank you. Too many pages to keep flipping. So, we're going to ask Daniel Barnett, do you have a presentation you wish to make? Thank you. Please come forward. And I apologize, Councillor Lloyd Ferguson, the ward councillor, is here this morning as well. Thank you, Lloyd.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Planning Committee. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Planning Committee. The application is for a change in zoning, a draft plan of subdivision, and a draft plan of condominium for the property at 1261 Mohawk Road in Ancaster. The proposed rezoning, subdivision, and condo application is to establish a 6-lot single detached residential dwellings on a private condominium road. The subject property is located on the north side of Mohawk Road. It is located to the west of Scenic Drive, which is unfortunately not on this location map, but just above over here. And it's west of the link, which is down over here. The property is designated residential in the Town of Ancaster official plan, which was in effect at the time of the application was for rezoning and subdivision was brought forward back in 2011. And the application is designated neighborhoods in the urban Hamilton official plan, which is now in effect and was in effect at the time the condominium application was brought forward. The application is to change the current zoning from A agricultural zoning, so the rezoning application is to change the zoning from A agricultural zoning to the R4-666 residential zone to permit the establishment of the 6 detached dwelling units. Just for a bit of history, this is the original concept plan, basically, that was brought forward in 2011 to establish 4 lots on a municipal road. This was eventually abandoned because they could not meet the standards that are required for a municipal road, and it was eventually revised with a new concept plan, which is this concept plan. Basically replaces the old Hazelwood municipal road that was intended to be created with a private condominium road, and also include additional lands by purchasing this portion of the property at 1263 Mohawk Road, which is actually here, and access it from Mohawk Road by way of the former Hazelwood unopened road allowance, and will be continued to be accessed from the new condominium road. The reason behind this is the fact that that particular property, while fronting onto Honeysuckle, there's a significant elevation change that basically precludes them getting access from Honeysuckle. In addition, they've also purchased the Hazelwood road allowance as part of this development. And of course, the proposal has also changed, as I said earlier, to a condominium road. The 6 lots will be created by way of the draft plan submission. That will actually create the lots, and then the condominium application will create the private condominium road. As part of the conditions of the draft plan and the condominium, there will be, as part of those applications, there will be a number of conditions required, ranging from issues like stormwater management, archaeology, urban design cost recovery, noise mitigation, warning clauses to advise future owners of noise issues, and the fact that garbage pickup will be from the Mohawk Road. It will not be from each individual lot, among other issues will be addressed through these conditions. The lands are to the north are comprised of single-family residential dwellings. Immediately to the east, there's a single-family dwelling. To the south, there's more single-family dwellings and a retirement home. And then to the west is a natural area. As I mentioned earlier, based on the topography changes, it's not just affecting this particular property, but these properties are also affected by the topography changes, hence the reason why they all gain access by a common driveway, and basically orient themselves to front this way as opposed to fronting towards Honeysuckle. This is a photo of the subject property as seen from Mohawk Road looking to the north. And basically this is kind of the old driveway that's basically part of the Hazelwood road allowance. This is a photo of the natural area located to the west of the property as seen from Mohawk Road looking northwest. This is a photo of the lands to the south of the property across the street, looking from Mohawk Road looking south. This is a photo of the garage for the property to the east at 1269 Mohawk Road. It also shows the retaining wall that exists on Mohawk Road. So there's topography issues on both sides, both on Mohawk Road and on the Honeysuckle side, but it actually gets higher as you go further west. And this is a photo of 1269 Mohawk Road. You can see, it's up on top of a hill, basically. So it illustrates that topography. And this is taken from Mohawk Road looking northeast. And this is just a photo of the back of the subject property as seen from the property looking north. In conclusion, it is staff's recommendation that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, draft plan of subdivision, and draft plan of condominium be approved subject to the recommended conditions of subdivision and condominium approval. It is the opinion of staff that the proposed development is consistent with the provincial policy statements and that conforms to the growth plan, policy of the growth plan, conforms to the town of Ancaster official plan, the old Hamilton Wentworth official plan, and the urban Hamilton official plan. And the proposal represents good planning that is compatible with the scale of development in the area. That concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate that. I'm going to ask anyone have questions of staff. Councillor Skelly, and then I'll...
not through the chair. May I ask
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
Can you just explain to me how you will, or how these condo owners will access the development? Where are they coming in?
They're coming in from Mohawk Road. So basically, this is the common element condominium portion, which includes the road and some visitor parking. And it's accessed off of Mohawk Road, comes into the site. And so if let's say this is the unit, you would basically access off that condo road.
So to the right of the red line is the dental office pathways. Is that correct? Is that where the daycare center is? On the right?
Well, there's a unit here, and then there's what you're talking about is
Right.
Yeah,
All right.
so
And in terms of traffic, I know it can be very difficult too in the morning, and on Mohawk Road, there's a lot of traffic at that specific area. Is that a concern that was taken into consideration for accessing that?
It was evaluated through the review of the applications. We are dealing with only a 6-lot, and none of the properties access directly onto Mohawk Road. That was one of the reasons why it was insisted that it be off of a private condominium road, is that we didn't want any of the properties accessing directly from Mohawk Road. And I believe we even took steps to make sure that that couldn't happen, basically, because we didn't want people accessing directly and basically backing out onto Mohawk Road. They have to exit in a forward manner.
I know there's a private through the chair. I know that there is a private enclave of homes. I think there are 3 homes to the right of that development. Will there be some sort of a barrier between those particular homes and the new subdivision?
Sorry, you said 3,
I believe there are 3. There's an enclave of 3 homes.
There's on the south side or the north side?
Wow, it would be on the south side, southeast side.
That would be right there, yeah.
No, northeast side, correct, northeast side. So how are they separating the condominiums from these particular homes? Will there be trees, some sort of planting? Because I know that the elevation will be a factor.
Through you, Madam Chair, well, I think one of the units you're referring to is actually the house that's currently on the subject property. That particular dwelling right there.
Through the chair, where the other house is to the right. That's the enclave. No, go back. Yep.
Oh, the ones that are.
Yep, they're built.
Okay, I see what you're talking about now. I mean these 3 right there.
Yes.
Yeah, those are actually front access off of Honeysuckle by way of this private driveway road, basically.
So there is, through the chair, so there is no...
There's no direct access from this.
And they don't impede, okay. There's no...
There'd be no access from the condo road to that particular road. Basically, there's existing fencing there that would remain, basically.
Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, this was an infill project that's been kicked around for years. I was out there, I think, the first time back in 2010, but never find something that would fit. And so it's nice to see we got something that'll meet all our criteria. I know garbage collection will be brought down to Mohawk Road. Garbage trucks aren't going to be expected now to go up and service these lots. But through you, a couple questions to Daniel. Dan, the most northerly lot, that's the existing home, correct?
Well, the most northerly lot is basically a former piece of property owned by the property at 1263, which is this property here. That property will maintain access from the condo road.
The existing home, that most northerly lot, then?
That one, yeah, I mean, it's not being created by this application. It's just an existing lot that is going to benefit by accessing off the condo road. But yeah, it's an existing lot. This is, I mean, when I think of the most northerly lot, this is the most northerly lot that's being created by this development, basically.
Okay, because I see there's 2 letters here today. One from, if you could just point them out on the map, One's from 14 Honeysuckle.
Is that property right there accessed off the private?
Back of the lot does slightly touch the new lot that's being created. And number 22, is that the one on the other side? Because I'm too old, I can't read those numbers.
That is correct. That's 22 right there. So in terms of reference to this, that's 22 there. So basically that property will, this property's backyard will be against that particular property. And then for 14, which is here, again, the orientation of that dwelling really is, because their driveway, their access is coming from here into their unit, it almost functions in that respect as a front yard for that particular unit, even though their official frontage is...
Honeysuckle won't be using this private the condominium road, though.
No, they will not.
Off that private road off of Honeysuckle.
That is correct. They are accessing this way. And so basically they are accessing their property. This is almost acting as their front yard in a sense.
Of course, infills are always difficult. There's always issues. But the main concerns I see in the one from 14 Honeysuckle is mostly around drainage and tree preservation, and that'll be dealt with at site plan approval, I suspect.
Yeah, in terms of, well, there's no site plan because these are singles, but through the conditions of a draft plan of subdivision, drainage issues will have to be addressed and evaluated and make sure that they're properly being that the water is in sense for drainage purposes being drained to an appropriate outlet.
No surface drainage from the developed area will be discharged onto a neighboring property.
That is correct.
Okay. And of course, you'll do a routine tree preservation plan that we do.
Again, there's also a condition of a tree preservation plan as one of the is condition, I believe, 23 of the draft plan of subdivision conditions.
And of course, I can understand where 22 Honeysuckle is concerned because it also backs onto them, and we're going from 4 to 6 homes, but they're big lots. What's the frontage of those lots being created?
Well, for the majority of the lots, it's 12 meters, 40 feet. This lot's 50 feet wide in terms of the width of this particular property, and I believe they're about 100 feet, or approximately 100 feet deep.
Okay, and my last question, Daniel, one of the problems in previous applications was servicing that home immediately east of the development. How are they going to be serviced now?
For this property or this property?
Access in their driveway.
Yeah. In previously, when they were purchasing the Hazelwood Road allowance, which actually extended to there, there was an agreement to allow the current owner of that particular property to park in this space. Now, my understanding from talking to the applicant, that particular owner has now left, and so that arrangement, which was basically done because there was a mobility issue for the person living there, that it was easier for them to, because of the topography, to enter their house from the back. They will still be able to access and use the...
Still have access from Mohawk Road?
From Mohawk Road, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Madam Chair, once again, I've received no calls in my office, no emails on this, but I'm looking forward to hear from the members of the public and what they may have to say.
Thank you, Councillor. Glad you're here this morning. Councillor Conley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just curious. I was just reading the report, and we can't do 4 lots, but we can do 6 lots.
Well, I mean, through you, Madam Chair, I mean, the applicant originally, yeah, I said through Madam Chair. The applicant originally proposed 4 lots on a smaller land area, basically. When they originally came in, they were proposing, they only owned these lands here.
Where are you showing me?
The land's outlined in red. The full extent of the land now extends beyond that. So when they originally came in, they had sufficient lands to do 4. They were proposing to do that 4 by creating the Hazelwood Road as a municipal road. But because they couldn't meet city standards in terms of turnarounds, road widths, and so on, they could not pursue establishing a municipal road there. So they began looking at acquiring additional lands and establishing a condominium road, and they acquired additional lands to allow them.
Because they've acquired more lands, they can do more.
Yes.
Thank you. It makes it a lot clearer to me. And I know we do this all the time, but we're reducing the lot's area, we're reducing the lot frontage, we're reducing the exterior side yard, and we're reducing the front yard setbacks. Are they significant reductions or are they minor reductions?
Well, I'll start with the front yard setback. The reduction is to go from 7.5 meters to 6 meters. If this was a few hundred meters to the east, it would be across the boundary into Hamilton, which would mean that would be the standard anyways. But in this case, it's because it
doesn't meet the standard.
True. But in this case, because all these lots are fronting onto the condominium road, they establish their own independent character on that condominium road. So not reflecting of any character that's currently along Mohawk Road, because it's basically that will be the character of that particular sense subdivision, basically, because each of those lots will be 6 meters in frontage. I mean, same thing in terms of the lot areas in the front. In terms of the lot areas specifically, the reductions in lot areas and lot widths really largely have to deal with the corner lots. This lot here and this lot here. Under the standard R4 zoning, the lot width requirements are larger for corner lots. I believe. Yep. Give me 1 second. I'll have to grab my Bible.
To have that happen.
So in terms of lot widths, the requirement for an interior lot is 12 meters, which is what all the lots are minimum meeting. So they're all exceeding the 12 meters. But for a corner lot, it goes up to 16 meters. So because this lot and this lot are considered corner lots, and the fact that they're fronting onto both the condo road and onto Mohawk, even though they're not accessing off of Mohawk or anything like that, if we didn't modify that provision, they would have to meet the 16 meter.
What's the size?
16.
16, it's what?
It'll be 12 meters, basically.
I don't think you have to go through all four. And it's not this development I'm really talking about. It seems every development we have now, there's always adjustments. Instead of 7, it's 6. Instead of 4 meters at the side yard, it's 2 meters. And I haven't seen one development, and I'm including all the ones going in my ward, that meet our standards. Sometimes there's pages of variances. And I just don't know why we have the standards when we give the variances out. I can understand some instances where you need a foot or 6 inches or something, but variances are in meters now in most cases. And it's just a general comment that bothers me, in that we don't even attempt to make the lots what our plans call for. You know, we do a variance. So, and I don't know if it's just to get more houses in there, but instead of 12 houses, you know, with the variances, they can get 15 houses in there. And at some point, I think we have to go back to the standards. And I think the variance has to be an exception rather than the rule, because I think, as far as I've seen in the last year and a half I've been here, it's the rule, not the exception. And it tends to bother me a little bit, but I understand sometimes why they have to do it. But I remember there was about 30 variances in this survey. And I thought, man, why do we have our rules and regulation? And it's just a comment. Please don't answer it. It's not something to answer today, but and I guess that's why I was asking this, because it's just another example of we're doing variance over variance over variance. And at some time, I think it has to stop or slow down. But the only way it can happen is if this committee and ultimately council starts getting a little more strict on what we allow and what we won't allow. Thank you for the allowing me to
Thank you,
comment.
Councillor Partridge, good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of committee. Welcome, Daniel. Thank you for your presentation. So, Daniel, you know my bugaboo is always about parking and traffic. And for the benefit of those who are attending as visitors, could you talk to me, please, about visitor parking? I'm not seeing any.
Well, in terms of parking, first of all, each unit will have their own individual parking, one in a garage and one in the driveway.
Right.
There will actually be 4 visitor parking spaces here, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, good.
And that's where so there will be some spaces off Mohawk Road, basically, for people to park, because obviously they can't park on Mohawk Road in terms of visitor parking. So that was evaluated, and they were required to provide that. And in terms of traffic, that was reviewed in terms of reviewing of these applications. And again, as long as they're not accessing directly off of Mohawk Road, that was kind of the biggest concern from a traffic perspective, that no one will be directly accessing off of Mohawk Road. And none of the lots are accessing directly off of Mohawk Road.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. The concern I have, and you know, with Waterdown being explosive growth and one of the highest growth areas of the city, we have a problem when we have one parking spot in the driveway and one in the garage, because people don't use their garages all the time for parking. And so if you've got 3 vehicles in a house, or even 2 vehicles in a house, then that may present a problem. So I'm just putting that out there, because that's been a pretty consistent issue with a lot of the developments, albeit this one is smaller, but it's a pretty consistent issue. In the letter, the resident raises the issue of pedestrian cut-through on their property. And so my question is, through you, Madam Chair, will there be a pedestrian walkway through to the other street? Is that something that residents need to worry about?
Well, in terms of pedestrian cut-through, I mean, there is no direct access to Honeysuckle, again, because A, because there's topography, and B, because there's basically just private homes between this development and Honeysuckle. Other elements that require is a fence to basically prevent and restrictions on not allowing people to put gates in those fences, so that no one can go, first of all, directly into the ESA from their backyard, basically. So that's going to be a requirement of this development, is that they put in fencing to prevent residents from, in a sense, trespassing into the ESA. I mean, in terms of closing it off entirely, obviously that can't happen, at least here, because of the fact that this property is actually accessed by way of an easement across that. So there can't be a complete fence along the back portion because of that particular aspect. But to get to the ESA, which I believe is what the concern was in the letter, there is a prohibition on fencing and putting gates in those fencing to gain access to the ESA.
All right, so there will be restrictions then on the
Through you, Madam Chair, that's correct.
And into the fencing. And the fencing will be done at the time of the development? It won't be something that's done a year after or several months later?
It's a requirement of the conditions of draft plan approval, basically, that they do that. They put, and then on top of that, put warning clauses so that future owners are aware of the fact that the fences have to be there and that they can't put gates in those fences. So basically, no one can come back and claim later, oh, I didn't know that I couldn't have a gate in my fence.
All right, and thank you for clarifying that, just for the visitors that are here, because I think that's an important aspect, especially with the ESA that is backing onto this property. The only other question I have, and I'm fully supportive of this with the ward councillor, but the lot or the lands have a greater elevation than the homes around them, correct?
Well, in terms of the elevation, it's kind of tricky with this area because of the topography is all over the the place. I mean, as I said, when just going from Honeysuckle to the property in behind this, there's a huge retaining wall, which is why they cannot access directly from Honeysuckle, even though that's where their road frontage for that lot is located, and why they've had to then gain access via the Hazelwood road allowance and subsequently now the condominium road for that particular lot. The same thing with these lots here. I mean, the fact that they are accessing from the back of their properties off of this kind of common driveway it's a testament to that topography. But I mean, it does say it's hard to go up at the back, and then it drops back down when you get towards Honeysuckle. I mean, that's from the Mohawk Road, but like this is where Hazelwood is. That's the 14. So it's actually the topography is kind of going down towards Mohawk Road at that point.
Well, and that's where my question comes from, because it does seem to be all over the place, as you said, and you know, look at dealing with all the applications that we do around this table. Every once in a while, there is one where the elevation is completely different than the homes around it, and so if you then end up with a 3-story townhouse development on it, those homes are, you know, quite a bit higher than the surrounding homes above it. Is that going to be an issue with this property?
Well, in terms of, first of all, for townhouses, no, because they're not, the zoning won't permit townhouses. It only permits single detached dwellings.
Right.
In terms of height, my understanding is it's to be 2-story dwellings, single detached dwellings.
Similar to what's there already?
Similar to what's in the surrounding area, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Green, good morning.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and good morning to everybody. I just wanted to go on the record and say I am in full support of Councillor Connolly's comments and hope that senior members of staff present here today and other planners take that into heed in terms of ongoing culture of ongoing variances, as it has become the rule and not the exception. So I thought that was very succinctly and well put and logical, and hope that it will be taken into consideration moving forward, because I know I certainly will be taking it into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm just going to relinquish the chair real quick to Deputy Chair, Vice Chair Aidan Johnson for a minute, so I could just make a comment about that.
Please go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. Appreciate the comments are made with regards to the zoning and the variances. And to staff, I'm going to ask the question, because one of our biggest issues right now is we're way behind in our comprehensive zoning bylaw review for residential. I know commercial is coming up, because I've had a couple meetings with staff. We're hoping to have that done within the next, Mr. Robichaud, maybe you can clarify, this year. Hallelujah. Right? For commercial. This is commercial through the whole new city of Hamilton. So that's amalgamating all 6 communities' commercial bylaws. We still have the residential components, and that's the dilemma that staff face. Please answer, Mr.
Through you, Madam Chairman. That is correct. Staff will be bringing forward draft commercial zones for consideration by committee and then for public consultation in May of this year. Excellent. And then the intent is to bring back, especially along the LRT corridor, the final zoning in the fall of this year. And then we will continue the consultation on the new commercial and mixed-use zones in the summer and the fall going forward. The residential zoning project is underway, but once we complete the commercial, we will then be aggressively moving forward on the residential zoning, and that will be the focus of activity in 2017 once we complete the commercial zoning.
Perfect. And that creates the problems that we're constantly met with here as far as variances, because as Daniel mentioned, what is it, a few meters away, the bylaw is different in Hamilton, whereas here it's a higher requirement. And I'm hoping that that will resolve a number of the requests that come before us once that part of our comprehensive zoning bylaw is dealt with. And that will finally give us, after 16 years, one full, single, concise binder for all of the new city of Hamilton. So everybody's communities will meet as laid out in this bylaw. So just for that information, Councillor, I'll take the chair.
I'll give you the chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Daniel. Can I ask that we receive the presentation from Daniel, moved by Councillor Johnson, second by Councillor Connolly, all in favour? And I know I recognize Joe Gicenzo, you're here in the audience. Do councillors have any questions of the developer, the applicant, there this morning? Seeing none, but welcome, Joe. And I'm going to now ask, I had members of the public indicate that you wish to come down and speak this morning. So I'm going to invite the members of the public wishing to speak to come to the podium. Please write your name, address, telephone number, and in the book provided. And please make your way down. I'm also going to ask, I guess I should read off 3 times, Ida, for the record and procedure, that are there any members of the public wishing to speak on this item? I have to state it 3 times. Any members on this item wishing to speak this morning? Any members of the public wishing to speak on this item, please come down now, and we'll have this member come down, and then we'll close off to the floor. Thank you. The book is right at the side there.
here?
We
This
can
book?
let you do it after if you like. Yeah, you may speak now, and then we'll catch you up. We won't let you go.
Okay. My name is,
Go ahead. Thank you.
sorry, my name is Lynn Simpson. My mother, Bernice Simpson, and I reside at 22 Honeysuckle Crescent. Just see if I can use this little gadget. Which one is the pointer? Our property, whoop. That's not that one. Our property is this one here, 22 Honeysuckle Crescent. Some time ago, Joe purchased a portion of the 1263 Mohawk Road property. At that time, at the time of purchase, it was our understanding that he was only authorized for 4 units, and that originally they were supposed to be on the original footprint of 1261 Mohawk Road. Part of the reason that I'm here today, along with my mom, is to make sure that everybody here understands that, yes, we are interested parties. We did write a letter back in 2012, and it was not included in the chronological order that, or document that Daniel had put together. So I wanted to be sure that that got included. Part of our concern is this area, along with the ESSA area, the environmentally significant area, consists of a number of trees. A lot of walnut trees are in that area. In addition, the original 1261 property had a number of old growth oak and maple trees, and all of those trees have now been removed. So it's unfortunate that Daniel's pictures show so much vegetation in that area, because if you go there now, you will be amazed to see how totally open that area is. So my big concern now is what's going to happen to the old growth tree that happens to be right there as a boundary marker separating this area. That tree has at least a 12-meter drip edge on it. So I mean, to me, that's going to influence the establishment of these 2 units. Well, I don't understand how, when I read the document here, it insinuates that the engineering division has been down there, looked at it, and said, yes, there could be additionally privately owned trees that will be affected by this development. However, technically, it kind of inferred that we were uninterested parties because we had not signed a document or a letter issued by our neighbor at 24 Honeysuckle in 2011. So my big concern is what's happening to that, because we've now lost all of the old growth trees that are on any of the property of 1261, and there's one remaining at 1263. The one that's at 1263 now, I don't know how he could possibly put in a piece of property without removing that one as well. So everything says that there's a tree protection plan here. I don't see any evidence of that. And I have certainly gone on record to say that our concern from 2012 relates to that. In addition, the other thing I want to draw to everyone's attention here is this land actually flows from 1263 or 1263 down across our property and down to across 22 and down into 24. Because of the level and the grade of the land there, when our home was originally built, the building inspectors insisted that the builder had to put a swale in there to support the drainage, because the 1263 runoff comes onto that property and then goes into 24 Honeysuckle. So that swale goes across our property and into the back area, which means the back of our property is high in one section and very low in another. It also means that this new building is going to be directly on approximately 33 feet of our backyard. Every house in this area has very large backyards. This would be completely different in changes to our area, because all of the homes are large lots. All of a sudden, we're willing to go to really tiny lots. We're willing to squeeze in more and more homes in an area that I don't think they belong. I was okay, my mother was okay, most of the neighbors were okay with the 4 places on the original 1261 area. But now all of a sudden we're going to 6, and our privacy is being diminished. Our value of our home is going to be compromised because we're going to be overlooked on 3 areas now. That wasn't the way it was when we brought the lot. That's basically all I want to say, but yes, I am concerned about the drainage as well.
Thank you. While you're writing your name, address, and phone number in the binder, Councillor Fergus, I'm going to turn to Daniel to just clarify, please. I think that would be most efficient. Daniel, do you want to just clarify about the tree preservation, et cetera?
Yeah, sure, through you, Madam Chair. In terms of the tree protection plan, they have done a preliminary tree protection plan that is still under review. That will have to be finalized as part of the conditions of draft plan approval. The tree in question is shown on the plan as being retained. There's going to be requirement for various tree protection fencing to be put up during construction so that there's not any damage to the tree through that process. So, but that tree that was mentioned by the interested party definitely is shown as being retained and being protected in the preliminary tree protection plan.
Thank you. And so your comments have been taken. I'm going to go to Councillor Fergus just a moment. You've signed in, and I just wanted to also say that your submissions have also been incorporated, so they are in the public record. Councillor Fergus.
Thank you very much. Through you too, Lynn. Thanks for coming out today. It'd be helpful in the future if you would contact my office so I could meet you there before this meeting. But being that as it may, I understand that you're a neighbor, and I understand the privacy impact because, well, it's not on your property. The most northerly lot is going to front on your property.
Yes.
So are you now satisfied with the answer from our planner that that walnut tree that you're concerned about will be preserved?
No.
Okay.
It'll
be embedded in the agreement.
If you go through the letter that I wrote, the other concern that I had, the document here talks about fencing to ensure that anybody that purchases a property here cannot trespass into the ESA area. It doesn't really specify that there's going to be a fence on the 22 Honeysuckle area because 22 Honeysuckle property.
Just take the laser and show me that. I think I know what you mean, but just show me with the laser pointer.
The 22 Honeysuckle area, that area, this line right here, that's all our property.
I got that, yeah. So you want a fence on there?
Yes.
Makes sense.
I do not want more traffic from these houses going through our property.
Okay.
But I would like to know what kind of fence.
I get that. So you too, Dan.
Verified earlier,
Will that
Daniel?
fence extend along the back
Yes, it has to.
of the property on Honeysuckle?
It's my understanding that they would, so for all those 5 lots on that side of the condo road, they would be required to provide a fence and there would be prohibitions on the gates.
Do you need an amendment to the recommendation, or can you guarantee us that'll happen?
Give me 1 second, I'll just check what the existing requirements are.
Thank you.
I believe it would be a requirement because it's condominium. They want to protect their property
Yeah,
as well.
I just want Lynn to walk away from here,
Yeah, absolutely.
knowing that for sure.
Yeah. And while Daniel's looking that up, Lynn, please feel free to keep
And I
in contact
understand
with
also,
your
Lynn,
council.
that this is a significant grade issue, that this whole area in here. In my previous life, I serviced scenic woods, and I built that big retaining wall in Honeysuckle. I know how high that thing is. And so the grade it is a challenge in this community. And so I just want to ask through you again to Daniel, I know that he's busy looking up my last question, and if you like, Madam Chair, I can just pause till we get that answer on the fence.
Yeah, so condition 15F basically of
What
the...
page number?
Page 4 of Appendix D.
Okay.
Condition F on that page basically says that the lots 1 through 5, which is those 5 lots on the west side, it's advised that rear fencing must be maintained and the installation of gates in that fencing to prevent access is not permitted. If council wants to upgrade that to a fence to being a visibility fence, that's up to, it doesn't specify whether it's just a chain link fence or a visibility or visual barrier, sorry. So if council wanted to amend that to,
So the applicant could just put up a simple chain link fence in.
that would satisfy this condition as it stands right now, yes. But if it's committee's will to upgrade that to a visual barrier fence.
Because I think Lynn has a significant argument here that when you look at the drawing, it will, because of the grade change in addition, a lot of privacy in your backyard. So, Madam Chair, the other ones don't really matter as much because they're back on an ESA or conservation land. But certainly lot 1, 2, 3, lot 5.
Lot 1.
Lot 1, is that lot 1?
Three mentioned.
Should have a visual barrier fence installed there. So,
So, Councillor Wood, I'll ask a committee member to make an amendment.
To the recommendation.
And we may
I'd
also
appreciate
ask the builder, the developer who's here, what his intent would be. But like,
that. Well, if we put it in the bylaw, it
Yep,
has to do
that's
it. So, if someone could just
We'll
make
do
that
that.
amendment, Councillor Partridge said she would.
Yep, thank
And
you.
my last question through you to Daniel is, with the grade changes, and water apparently, according to Lynn, cascades from lot 1 down into her rear yard. Will that now have to be captured by an interceptor swale? And
Through you, Madam Chair, one of the requirements of the is that they address drainage. How exactly they go about doing that, that's really up to.
what was that point again? What kind of drains?
Sorry?
You said there's a requirement to do a specific type of
Well,
drainage.
through you, Madam Chair, the requirement is basically that they address stormwater management appropriately. How they go about doing that is, they'll have to find an appropriate engineering solution to that and satisfy our engineers that they are in fact doing that.
There will be more water running off this once you have a driveway and a roof on it. And I think it's a reasonable request that that water not cascade across her lot. Can we agree that there'll be an interceptor swale to capture that water to prevent that from happening as part of the stormwater management?
I'll probably defer to Tony Sergi on that question.
Good morning, Councillor, Madam Chair. To Councillor Ferguson, we'll look at all the grading issues. I understand the concerns, and maybe we could talk offline exactly the issues that Mrs. Simpson has raised so we can deal with it. Because we don't have all the details at this point in time. And the detailed engineering submission, as they indicated, will be following a plan of subdivision, and all that issues will be addressed at that time.
Okay, and Chair, I don't mean to prolong this. One more quick question, Tony. There's radical grade changes through this whole site, around that whole scenic woods area. And what's happened, I take Sue for her word that, come on. Show me where the laser button is in this thing. Oh, gotcha. Thank you. So, my big fat farmer fingers keep crossing over on it. So, the most northerly lot runs from east to west with the drainage. And that water is discharged onto the honeysuckle address. And so my question is, I'm going to try one more time to do this. Will there be an interceptor swale along here to prevent that water, after this development is done, from all spilling onto the neighbor's lot?
Through the chair to the council, I'm just looking at the preliminary engineering drawings. If you give me 2 seconds, I'll tell you about where it's going to actually spill over. What they're proposing is an infiltration gallery in the back of all these lots to cut everything off from spilling over to the ESA and to that one lot. At this point, the preliminary grades, funneling everything to the north side. I have to look at where they're actually going to take the grade back. Yeah. That corner, northwest corner.
Here.
Yeah.
Then where's it go?
Property. Yeah. Yeah.
So the through the chair, the preliminary agreements, there seems to be a typo on one of it. It shows that it's actually going to go back towards the self-limit, but I have to look at the details more carefully. But I understand her concerns. Maybe we can talk offline exactly where a meet on site prior to the construction and the design.
Okay, I just don't know how to have the neighbors walk out of here being comfortable this problem is going to be solved for them. So I don't know, Madam Chair, it might be appropriate then that the ward councillor be invited to attend the site plan meeting or the review meeting to get very comfortable that they're not going to be affected by that. Would that be appropriate for someone to move that also?
Councillor, that can be added, and you're
Okay.
always invited. And maybe another suggestion, you may be able to firm up the information before council meeting. And can
That might be a good idea. So Lynn, I just want to, I'll turn it back to you in 1 second. I just want to tell you that the tree will be preserved. It's in the bylaw. Secondly, we will get more water than what you're currently getting as a result of development. That's development 101. And so our director of engineering, development engineering, will fill me in and brief me on how they're going to prevent that from happening. And if you leave me your contact information, I'd be happy to bring it out and show it to you after I get comfortable, just to make sure that, so you're going to have a fence installed along here for privacy. It's going to be a visual barrier fence so your neighbors can't see through it. The tree will be preserved, and I'll deal with that water issue for you to try to solve your problems.
May I ask 2 other questions, please?
Sure.
I was just going to clarify that because these are single-family houses, there is no site plan meeting, so that, I mean, the more appropriate would be to deal with it before the council.
Through the chair to the councillor, it's following a plan of subdivision, so ultimately they have to comply with the subdivision agreement, and we'll include those issues that you've raised before releasing it for servicing.
Okay?
Thank you. And can you agree then to show that to me before it gets approved?
Chair to the councillor, of course.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Caitlin, I'm going to allow you.
Okay, two questions. I understand from reading the info from Daniel that it indicates there will be sump pumps required in every home. Are the sump pumps required to discharge into the sewers system for Hamilton, or are they discharging above grade?
Excuse me, ma'am. Through the chair to the councillor, we actually discharge typically the sump pumps to the city sewer.
Okay. And then the last question I have is in concern with the height of the home that's on lot 1. Yes. So, I mean, obviously our home appears to be 2-story. It's truly only 1.5 stories. There is no second level on that home. So, I mean, I certainly don't want a 3-story or a 2.5-story home up there that's going to be overlooking me even more.
So is your question the height of the house or
Yes,
the height
well,
of the fence?
my concern is there a bylaw that says how high these homes have to be or can be? Yes.
Through you, Madam Chair, the restriction in the R4 zoning is that the maximum height be 10.5 meters, which typically is 2 stories. You may be able to squeeze a 2.5-story home in that, but I mean, my understanding is it's supposed to be a 2-story home that's being proposed.
And in feet, Daniel, equates to? 1 and 33, if I remember correct.
34.
Yeah.
That's allowed without any variance. And I think your mother may have indicated also height of the fence. We
Yes,
have a
she's
bylaw.
concerned about that.
6 feet 6 inches is what our bylaw allows.
6 foot
Max.
6?
6'6". Okay?
Yes, I would
Hopefully
like to be on record that we do want copies of any information.
Madam Clerk will take that information. You've logged your
I have.
contact. Excellent. Thank you so much. Are there any other members of the public wishing to come down and speak to this item? Seeing none, I stated 3 times for residents to come down. Now I'm going to ask for a motion to close off the floor. Councillor Partridge, Councillor Green, thank you. And I'm going to ask for a motion to receive Lynn's presentation. Councillor Aidan Johnson, Councillor Collins, all in favor? Carried. And I'm going to come back to Councillor Partridge on an amendment for Councillor Ferguson, please. Thank you.
Yes, if Councillor Ferguson could give the wording, please, and I would happily move it, and then I need a seconder.
Councillor Ferguson saying you'll move the lips.
All right, thank you.
That Appendix D, the conditions of draft plan approval will be amended by specifying condition 15F, that the fence to be installed by the developer be a visual barrier fence. And there's another one also, that the ward councillor be apprised of the drainage issues before it's approved.
That's moved by Councillor Partridge, second by Councillor Connolly. All in favor? That's the amendment on the recommendation as amended, moved by Councillor Green, seconded by Councillor Aidan Johnson. All in favor? Sorry, Councillor Ferguson. Before we vote?
You have to move the whole 6.3, which is what I think you're ready to do now.
That's what I'm just doing now.
Yeah, and I just wanted to...
As amended.
I just want to comment on Councillor Connolly about the variances, and I absolutely agree with them. But on this one, it's an infill, and I think I'm prepared to support it. It's 40-foot lots. We're approving 30-foot lots all over the place now. Another variance is 1.2 meter setback, side yard setback. We're approving 0.6 meter setbacks all the time in various parts of the city. And we did have another nasty one that had 12 variances at 121 Fiddler's Green Road, and staff recommended approval, and I want to thank committee and council. They supported denying it. It went to the OMB and we won it on that basis. And then we changed the Wilson Street secondary plan from Centerline and Douglas Road to the back to capture this property. That was appealed, and Mike again on Friday won that at the OMB. And so we are making progress on these variances, but you have to look how practical they, 40-foot frontage on a single-family lot is still pretty generous by today's standards. So that's why I felt it difficult to oppose that.
Thank you, Councillor. Now, on the motion as amended, Madam Clerk.
Madam Chair, there's also amendments to Appendix B and C. They haven't been read into the record that Councillor Ferguson is proposing. They were distributed on yellow.
Okay, was that just 1 second? That's Portia. Oh, no, sorry. That's the next one, Ida. Sorry. I thought I had it in order. That's fine. I'm going all right. I don't remember hearing of this, but okay. So again, we have a mover and a seconder on the recommendation as amended. All in favor? Carried. Ida, you got who is the mover and seconder, correct? Thank you, everyone. Okay, we're going to move on now to 6.3 is the applications to amend the Urban Hamilton Official Plan and Town of Ancaster zoning bylaw number 8757 for lands located at 120 and 128 Portia Drive, Ward 12 again. And I'm going to read off. Members of the public, in accordance with provisions of the Planning Act, please be advised that if a person or public body does not make oral or submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the City of Hamilton before Council makes a decision regarding the Urban Hamilton Official Plan and zoning bylaw appeal amendments to the person or public body, is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Council of the City of Hamilton to the Ontario Municipal Board, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Board unless, in the opinion of the Board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So I'm going to just turn to the audience. Members of the public, is there anyone wishing to speak to this item? This is 120-128 Portia Drive, Ancaster. Seeing none, would Councillor be supportive in waiving the presentation on this? Councillor, is the ward, did you wish a presentation?
I know that there was some issues, and I've had the opportunity to meet with the applicant on those issues and our planning staff, and I have an amendment before you today to solve these problems. And I know that there was delegations that wanted to speak to this issue, but they're not here. If we adopt these, they're satisfied with them. And but we may hear from them. Do we have to hear from the applicant or consultant now?
I can once we close. Well, I'm just asking if we first waive the presentation.
Oh,
so
I'm
let me
okay
go
with
through the
that.
steps.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're okay with that. So motion moved by Councillor Pasuta, second by Councillor Partridge to waive the presentation. And as indicated, Councillor, I see no one indicating wishing to speak here this morning on this item from the public. So moved to second. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, everyone. So we've now closed off the public meeting. So we waived that. Did the applicant wish to come down and make some comments? Good morning. Ms. Matt Johnston, Urban Solutions. Sorry, Alvin.
Good morning, members of the committee and staff. As Councillor Ferguson alluded to, we have reviewed the motion that has been handed out this morning, and we are in concurrence with it. If committee would like to hear from me on the details behind those modifications, I'd be glad to speak to them, or we could just allow you to carry on.
Thank you. I'll turn to committee then. Are there any questions from committee to the planner? Okay, by all means.
Certainly.
Ms. Johnson, thank you. And when you have a motion that we'll be dealing with Councillor as well.
Thank you, Ida. Again, good morning. My name is Matt Johnston. I'm a registered professional planner with Urban Solutions. This morning I'm joined by our project team and the project developers, Mr. Ali Premji of Trinity Development Group, and also Mr. Doug Annan with Urban Metrics. The subject property is contained within a development that we commonly refer to as the Wilson Common. It's a 33-acre development comprised of 355,000 square feet of commercial space. The development is located on the west end of Ancaster on Wilson Street, west of the 403, north of the existing Smart Centers development comprised of a Canadian Tire, Walmart, and a number of other commercial establishments in the area. The area in question is noted on the screen here, the subject lands. So within that greater development, we're really honing in on one specific block. This block is currently approved to permit 11,780 square feet of arterial commercial uses, of which 287 can be used for district commercial uses. The purpose of the application today is to increase that proportion of district commercial uses from 2,007 up to 10,525. Block has received site plan approval, so all we're doing today is really determining what the type of tenant makeup that can go in to this particular block. It was just starting. The motion and the modification this morning talks about 4 changes to the bylaw that's contained in the staff report. The first change is to accommodate professional offices to be located on the ground floor. The second request is somewhat technical in nature, moving places of entertainment from a restricted use over to the permitted use category within the bylaw. Finally, we're looking to permit supermarkets, grocery stores, food stores to a maximum of 750 square meters. That's about 8,000 square feet. The intent there is to accommodate the likes of a bulk burn, whereas the initial draft bylaw prohibits these uses, really intending to stop competition from the approved longos. So we're really just making accommodations for something of the likes of a bulk burn. And then finally, our last request is also rather technical in nature, but we're asking to remove the cap on select non-food retail establishments. What that removal does is really take it from the 8,360 square meter cap and brings it up to 10,525, which is the cap for those district uses. So you're talking about a 2,000 meter bump up. That's that last request. That's the motion that's before you today, and we look to your support. I'd be happy to answer any more detailed questions on those modifications or the development in its entirety. Thank you.
Matt, questions, Councillor Connolly?
Well, it always puzzles me. I really don't have a problem with this, but it always, we put things in for, we're going to restrict this, we're going to restrict that, we can't do this, change it all again. I don't know why, first of all, we restricted it in the first place in the bylaw. No, I agree. I mean, I think we all have had, I got one right now, a similar situation that is restricted, and I just don't understand why. This, so I wanted to hear exactly what you were talking about, basically, so I have an understanding. I have no problem with it. I just want to have most of it, you're opening up the variety of different.
Madam Chair, that is correct, Councillor Conley.
I have no problem. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, everyone. Seeing no further questions, motion to receive Mr. Johnson's presentation, moved by Councillor Partridge, seconded by Councillor Aidan Johnson. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Matt. And I'm going to now, I've called out for residents. Councillor Ferguson, did you wish to comment?
No, I just need someone to move these.
We're going to do
amendments.
that. We're going to do that, sir. I've got it under control. Thank you. We're going to close off to the floor now, and I'm coming back into committee. We have before us a motion. Councillor Pasuta, you're moving it, and a seconder will be Councillor Aidan Johnson. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the motion here, moved by myself and second by Councillor Aidan Johnson, applications to amend the Urban Hamilton Official Plan and Town of Ancaster zoning bylaw number 87-57 for lands located at 120, 128 Portia Drive, Ancaster, PED 16083, Ward 12A. The staff be directed to amend Appendix B to permit non-select food retail uses with no maximum gross floor area and to remove supermarket, grocery store, and or food stores from the list of prohibited uses and allow them as permitted use up to a maximum of 750 square meters.
Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
B,
Sorry.
that staff also be directed to amend Appendix C to allow for business and professional offices with no restrictions on location, to remove from the list of restricted uses places of entertainment or recreation within wholly enclosed buildings, except for movie theaters, and add it to the list of permitted uses, to remove the cap on non-select food retail, and to remove supermarket, grocery store, and or food stores from the list of prohibited uses and allow them as permitted use up to a maximum of 750 square meters.
Thank you. Motion's before us. Councillor Green, question on the motion.
Just if staff had any comment on any implications or anything, areas of concern?
Through you, Madam Chair, to the councillor. Staff does not have concern with the change with respect to the place of entertainment. It maintains the arterial commercial designation. With respect to the other three modifications, the bylaw and official plan amendment included in the staff report implements the market study that was submitted by the applicant and peer reviewed accordingly by MGP Group on our behalf. The particular modifications that the applicant is seeking have not been reviewed through an addendum market study, so staff is not in a position to take a position on those particular modifications at this time without the information being submitted and peer reviewed.
Through you then to Mr. Robichaud, so as not to put anybody on the spot, is this something that ought to have a peer review, or is this just a regular run-of-the-mill amendment that we just go ahead and do, or would it make sense to perhaps wait for this review as it is already underway?
Through you, Madam Chairman, the original application, a market study was submitted, and that was peer reviewed, and the result of that peer review was translated into what staff prepared and presented to Planning Committee today. These changes would normally, our preference would be that it be looked at by our peer reviewer to see if they have any concerns or issues. Well, there may not be any issues or concerns. In the absence of that peer reviewer having an opportunity to look at these changes, it's difficult for staff to say whether or not there's any issues or concerns here. simply because we just haven't had that opportunity. They have submitted, the applicant's market consultant has provided some information to justify these changes, but our peer reviewer has not had the benefit of looking at the justification for those changes.
Okay.
So, sorry, so in
No,
a perfect world, we would have preferred to have had our peer reviewer had the opportunity to review the changes that were being asked, and then we could respond back to planning committee whether or not there's any issues or concerns with those from a technical perspective. The applicant is aware that if there is an appeal, that it would be at their risk in the absence of a peer review consultant from the city saying that these changes are acceptable or not.
So, Madam Chair, through you, and so as not to derail the project, but is there opportunity, or has that ship already sailed in terms of the peer review? Could this be referred back to a peer review to have comments from staff?
Madam Chairman, we haven't had the opportunity to contact our peer review consultant to see if they could how quickly they could look at this matter based on their current workload. So between now and council, we could provide an update on whether or not, and if it would need 2 weeks or 4 weeks, or if the peer review could even look at it between now and council next week. We simply don't know because these changes came to us late Friday afternoon, and we haven't had a chance to follow up with our peer review consultant to see if they have an opportunity to look at this matter.
And again, I can acknowledge kind of the work that's been done on this file previous to this meeting. However, I don't like the late nature of this being walked on today, Friday, staff getting a heads up, not having it being peer reviewed. It'd be very much my preference. I couldn't support it without having staff have a peek at it. Certainly they are experts in their field, and I would feel a lot more comfortable for those particular amendments that our staff have had time, it being now Tuesday, them having put this on the table on Friday, to at least take a look at it and comment on it. So for those reasons, I can't support this motion at this time, and I would request that if people had an open mind perhaps to look at staff having had the opportunity to take a peek at it and or it go back to the peer review with the consultant. So I guess my next question through you to Matt, to Mr. Johnson, what is the time sensitive nature of this? Could it not have the opportunity to be peer reviewed, and why so late in the game?
Well, as you know, we've been working quite closely with staff through the entire process. In terms of these requests that came forward, there are two that are really unrelated to market needs, and that is the first request regarding offices to be located on the ground floor, and the second in terms of where the places of entertainment fits within the amending bylaw. So those two matters of the four are non-market issues, if you will. The remaining two relates to a proposal to accommodate the likes of a bulk barn. The vision that's in the current competition to the existing Longo's, the existing grocery component to Walmart. So in our view, in our professional market consultant from Urban Metrics view, a cap on food stores to permit a bulk barn at about 8,000 square feet doesn't propose any market impact matters to the existing uses out there. The second component is the cap on the select non-food retail. And again, the current cap in the bylaw is 8,000 and change square meters. We're going up to 10,525, a difference of just over 2,000 square meters, or 20,000 square feet. So we're really talking about that 2,000 square meters. In terms of the market review of that impact for that small 2,000 meter bump up, it has been analyzed by our consultant. The number was also reviewed by your peer reviewer in just a different context. So the number tested is 150,000 square feet for Wilson Street Common. That number was tested by our consultant and your peer reviewer. It was just not applied specifically to the Block B. So there's a consensus out there that 150,000 square meters works. It's just hasn't been vetted as you know through the peer review consultant, thought to be minor in nature to go forward today. So that's just a quick kind of snapshot of those modifications. And
I guess I won't pretend to know the nuances of the project, but I would like to comment on the process. I'm just wondering if you can comment on the timing of when you put this forward. Why Friday? Like, have you been working with staff on this for a long time? Why was this brought Friday?
It was through, again, a lengthy process, and the issues of the food store component is just the direct result of tenant interest, and trying to advance this through the process that has been a challenge, just to respond to market needs and to work with staff. And had we had the opportunity to bring it forward at an earlier opportunity, we would have done so. There was some back and forth between our consultant and your peer reviewer. And unfortunately, just as the sequence of events kind of led us to today, the opportunity to vet this additional 2,000 square meters didn't have the opportunity to occur.
Just lastly, it's not begging the question, how long through you, Madam Chair, have you been working on this with staff?
The application was submitted in June of 2015. Peer review was made available to us, I believe it was dated September. And since that time, it was really through the month of February that we got into the process of going back and forth with the zoning bylaw. So it was really February where we saw the draft bylaw, and that's where we have made a number of changes and worked with staff to bring the bylaw contained in the report, but we weren't able to get to these items.
Okay, I'm still trying to wrap my head around 7 months lead in, 3 months kind of back and forth once the bylaw comes, and then getting it Friday, I guess, is to Councillor Connolly's earlier comments about process and timing, and certainly not to be obstructionist. It'd be my preference that if this could be rolled into the staff process at an earlier time, that I think it'd be more respectful of the process rather than walking it on a Friday, kind of the week before it's coming to committees. Certainly happy to hear any comments. I'm sure there's probably better rationale around the table, but it's just the process. It's not even the variables of the details of the deal, just the timing and the process and how it was walked on. So,
Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, I think I can help with this a bit. I was first contacted by the applicant on Wednesday of last week, and this has been in the process for a long while, as Mr. Johnson said, to make these changes to this particular development, which is well underway. I mean, the Longos has been a tremendous success, or the Lowe's has been a tremendous success so far, and Longos is going to open early summer, ready to go. And I just want to remind the committee, when this thing's fully built out and it's heading in that direction, it'll generate about $1.8 million of new taxes for the city of Hamilton. But there's a couple things that stood out for me, and I think Councillor Connolly hit the nail on the head. He says, why do we control what tenants are in there? I thought, that was my first question. Why do we care if it's a bulk barn? Because this is what it's all about. What's wrong with the bulk barn? And so that struck me. And the one that really struck me is no professional offices. And I don't know what's like in the small communities in your wards, like Waterdown or Bimbrook or Stony Creek, is when the doctors locate in downtown Ancaster, it creates a horrendous parking problem. Because it's something in the order of 4 parking spaces per doc. Well, most docs have 3 staff, plus themselves, plus 5 or 6 patients waiting, and it just chokes up our parking. This is a nice big parking lot that's probably used during the daytime, where most shoppers use in the evening, to kind of alleviate that problem we're having in our village core. And there is professional offices in the strip malls that are in the core of Ancaster. One of them in particular is a rehab center. And they specialize in doing rehab for hip and knee replacements. They couldn't possibly get up to the second floor. My wife would do it. He said she couldn't have walked up to the second floor if we're insisting that these type of facilities be on the second floor. It just made a lot of sense that if the doc can afford commercial retail space, then they probably need that access. And once again, I don't know why we want to interfere with the natural marketplace and what they're doing. So it's to accommodate bulk barn is really the bottom line. I don't know why we involve ourselves in who the tenant should be. And secondly, to allow offices, professional offices on the first floor, where it's not convenient for seniors and others to climb to a second floor office to get a professional appointment. So these are the reasons I'm supporting it. I'm trying to find this compromise. I think we've got it. Staff helped me draft this resolution and to make it meet the criteria they're looking for, and the applicant's prepared to accept it. So I would ask committee's indulgence to approve this today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Pasuta.
Madam Chair, but Councillor Ferguson stressed the points that I was going to bring up about the being on the first floor and medical, and as we age, at least I'm aging anyhow, so I don't want any knee replacements though, but same points to Councillor Ferguson, and I think this is a great project.
Partridge.
Yeah, I'll just throw in my 2 cents that I completely support this when I look at all the development going on right across our city. But you raised the similar points about Waterdown. You know, we are now up to 6 dentists in their own buildings, and I'm just amazed that they're all thriving and doing great businesses. But, you know, we need to pay attention to our aging population, and particularly when it comes to locating healthcare services down on the main floor. So I wholly support this 100%. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go back to Councillor Green, I'll just relinquish the chair real quick to Councillor Johnson.
Please go ahead.
And I too want to concur with the ward councillor and the previous 2 speakers. I do support this, and I agree. You know, it's an issue of business supply and demand. We'll control that, and I see that in my own ward. And I mean, we have issues with parking when they're in these malls. They'll all iron themselves out. So I certainly have no problems going forward, and certainly no problem with Food Basics or with the Bulk Barn. I think it's a fabulous store. I wish it was closer to me. And I now will go chairs back.
Give you the chair back.
Madam Chair, I'll certainly respect the rational processes and the planner for future times. If you got 7 months, see if you can fit in just a little bit earlier in the conversation. Just my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And with that, I believe we're all done comments and questions on this. On the motion, on the recommendation now, as we voted on the motion, correct? Wait a minute, I don't think we did because you stopped me. Motion has been moved by Councillor Pasuta, seconded by Councillor Aidan Johnson. That's the amendments. All in favor? Carried. On the recommendation as amended now, moved by Councillor Robert Pasuta, seconded by Councillor Judy. All in favor? Thank you, everyone. I do have all of that. Thank you, Matt. Okay, we're going to move on now to item 6.4. Unfortunately, Councillor Brenda Johnson, the ward councillor, is not able to attend today due to some injury. And read off. Item 6.4 is applications for amendments to the Urban Hamilton Official Plan of the City of Stoney Creek Zoning Bylaw number 369292 for lands located at 288 Glover Road, Stoney Creek, Ward 11. I'm going to read off again. Members of the public, in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act, please be advised that if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a pub Hamilton before council makes a decision regarding the Urban Hamilton Official Plan and zoning bylaw amendments, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Council of the City of Hamilton to the Ontario Municipal Board added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Municipal Board unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. This item we have written comments added, item comments 6.4I, 6.4 double I, 6.4 small 3, and 6.4 IV, 6.4 bracket 5, which is from Councillor Brenda Johnson. Ida, you read those off. Do I have to put the names back in the record? We have them all before us. Thank you. So may I have a motion first to receive all of the comments that were submitted? Those are 5 items, moved by Councillor Connolly, second by Councillor Skelly. All in favor? Thank you. Everybody's going to know by the end of today that Councillor Donna Skelly is more than thrilled, and we are thrilled to have her on Planning Committee, Councillor. Thank you. And I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting once and twice that now constitutes 6 members being required for quorum. Okay? Thank you. So, do I have any members of the public here wishing to speak on this item today? And we do. Thank you. I'm going to say it 3 times. Do we have... should I say it now? I'll say it now. Do we have any members of the public wishing to speak to this item today? Going once? Going twice? 3 times. We're aware of that. Close that part off. Thank you. So we're going to ask now for planning staff. Are you going to make, yes, I've got Delia coming forward to make the presentation today. Delia McPhail. Good morning, Delia.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of Planning Committee, members of staff, and the public. The applications before you include an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment that would allow the proposed townhouse development and stormwater management facility to proceed in advance of the Fruitland-Winona secondary plan being finalized or approved by the OMB, and the associated block servicing strategy being finalized. The subject lands are identified as 288 Glover Road in Stony Creek at the southeast corner of the intersection of Barton Street and Glover Road. The surrounding land uses include residential to the south and east, industrial to the north, and agriculture and institutional to the west. The proposed concept plan submitted includes 77 townhouse dwelling units on 4 condominium roads and a stormwater management pond located adjacent to Barton Street. This aerial photograph shows the former church building and parking area that once occupied the site. The industrial office buildings are part of the prestige industrial business use that are to the north. Okay. The uses to the west include agriculture and a banquet facility. Single detached dwellings abut the lands to the south and the east. This is an image of the subject lands taken south from Barton Street. This is a similar image of the lands where you can see Glover Road in the background as it approaches the intersection with Barton Street. This is a view of the subject lands, which is looking northeast from Glover Road. And this is a view of the lands from the southeast at the corner of Willow Lane and Christina Avenue. Now for photos of the surrounding lands. This image depicts the lands to the west, including a single detached dwelling and the lands being used for agriculture. These lands are those that are south of Barton Street on the west side of Glover Road. This photo depicts a banquet facility known as Winona Vine Estates on the lands to the west. These are some of the homes on the south side of Willow Lane. This is a view of the streetscape of Christina Avenue looking south. The subject lands are behind the lands on the right of this image. These are other houses along Christina Avenue. Again, the rear yards also about the subject lands. These are lands to the east on Christina Avenue. Again, the rear yards of these properties about the subject lands. This photo is taken from the intersection of Barton Street and Christina Avenue, and it's looking northwest, depicting the Prestige Business Park on the north side of Barton Street. This image depicts the Prestige Business Park building, associated parking and landscaping on the lands to the north of the subject lands. The purpose of the official plan amendment application is to allow the proposed development of the subject lands to proceed in advance of the Fruitland-Winona secondary plan being in force and effect, to allow the built form, namely block townhouses, and to allow the development of the site to proceed prior to the finalization of the block servicing strategy. I would invite you to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. The Fruitland-Winona secondary plan has been adopted by Council and supports and represents Council's vision for the growth and development of the plan area. The policies in the secondary plan provide clear direction related to the timing of applications proceeding. Moving these applications forward before the block servicing strategy and other required studies, such as the floodplain analysis, have been completed, may have impacts on future servicing and infrastructure requirements in the plan area. Furthermore, there is an environmental assessment currently underway that has yet to determine the ultimate width of Barton Street, which is intended to meet the transportation requirements of the plan area. Therefore, staff recommend that the applications be denied on the following basis. The proposal is not consistent with the provincial policy statement. The proposal does not comply with the vision of the Urban Hamilton official plan, and as the applications do not ensure appropriate and orderly development and are considered premature, as the Fruitland-Winona secondary plan is currently under appeal and before the Ontario Municipal Board. And finally, the proposal is considered premature as the block servicing strategy required by the secondary plan has not been completed to demonstrate how the lands can be developed appropriately and in a coordinated and integrated fashion that will not impact other developments in the secondary plan area. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Delia. I have questions. Councillor Green, you have a question?
I'm not sure if in this presentation, I apologize, that Councillor Brenda Johnson's message had been addressed.
I raised the comments that in the beginning.
Okay, well, then I guess I'll wait further to put that.
Okay, so on Delia's presentation, any comments? Seeing none, may I have a motion to receive Delia's presentation? Moved by Councillor Collins, second by Councillor Green. All in favor? Thank you, everyone. Now I'm going to ask the members of the public wishing to speak to this item, please come down to the podium. Please write your name, address, and telephone number in the book provided, and we'll go from there.
So my name is Daniela, and I live on Willow Lane. And I just want to thank Delia for that presentation, because I can speak on behalf of myself and the residents on both Christina and Willow Lane that we are opposed to this development for the same reasons, that it doesn't fit the jurisdiction of the homes that exist in that area. As you can see, most of them are bungalow homes that have probably been there for over 60 years. It's not clear in the plans either. It looks like, I'm curious to know what the yellow and orange, you know, if some of those are 3-story townhomes versus 2-story townhomes. The developer was cooperative in that we had a previous meeting where they did change some of the ideas we had, so we're not opposed to the development, but I think that it definitely should be, we should be waiting for the Ontario Municipal Board to look at the big picture before we allow development to start prematurely.
Thank you, Danielle. And please enter your name, address, and phone number for our records. Any questions of Danielle? Seeing none, but I am going to turn, while you're writing that, Danielle, for Delia to answer your question as far as the difference in the colors. Delia?
Through Madam Chair to the member of the public. The different colors that are depicted on the concept plan indicate the orange is the street townhouses that have rear lane access. So along Glover Road and Willow Lane, those townhouses are proposed to be 3-story, and they would be fronting those municipal roads. Their access to parking and their garages would be within the internal condo road that's proposed by the applicant. The yellow indicates the block townhouses, and those heights would have a maximum of 2 stories, as proposed by the applicant.
Delia, there's a buff color there in the middle, and they are?
They are, through the chair, or sorry, to answer your question, Madam Chair, they are for 2-story townhouse units. The average unit size is different. The kind of buff color between the two, those would be the units internal, have an average unit size of 1,837 square feet, so 1,837 square feet, whereas the brighter yellow are still 2-story, but they have an average unit size of 1,618 square feet.
Okay, thank you. Did you wish to ask another question, Julie?
Well, I don't know about asking another question, but even making a comment. I know this is to appeal, so like the development. So, I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to say some of the ideas or concerns that we have as residents. Would that be appropriate for this, or would that maybe?
Time to state it, because this is what goes in the public record.
Okay. So It would, if we developed this prior to the OMB, saying that we would be setting a precedent for other developments in the community that's going to allow builders to build dwellings higher and having a lot more dense to what our existing community looks like. Property values of existing single dwelling homes are going to be affected. The community, I know for a fact, this development, I counted 17 visitor parking spots for 77 condos. I have relatives that live in similar complexes, and we're parking on side streets. So that's going to impact our streets, and also risk for flooding to existing homes we're concerned about.
Thank you for those comments. Thank you, Danielle. And we'll receive all the presentations at the end. Someone else wishing to come down, please come forward. And I'm just going to make comment. I believe that, unless there's a change, that no one is here today as a representative for the applicant. So I just want to put that on the record. Ida, we haven't had any change to that. So we'll just make sure.
Through you, Madam Chair, I believe the landowner is present today.
Thank you. Okay, we'll recognize you after this presenter or after the presenters then. Thank you. Good morning.
Hi, thank you. My name is Kim Ashworth, and I live at 268 Christina. And I just want to comment again on what Danielle was saying about people parking on our street. It is a very narrow street. And if we have people coming out from there and parking on our street, it's going to be causing a huge amount of problems for people, especially we have a huge amount of seniors on our street who are at the end of their driving careers but have some issues when people are parking on their street and trying to get out of their driveways. It's a huge problem, and that's our main concern, is that all these people who have visitors are going to be on our street, Christina Ave, and it's very narrow, and Willow Lane as well. There's not a lot of space there for anyone to park, so that, I just wanted to put that on record, that's my main concern about this development.
Questions of Kim? Thank you, Kim. And just so the residents know, and I'm aware, these are also unurbanized streets. That's why they're narrow.
Yeah.
I believe you have, I'm not remembering on Christina how deep the ditches are, but you have ditches
Yes.
in that area.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Seeing no questions. Is there anyone else from the public wishing to come down to speak? I'm going to turn to is property owner correct to come down? Good morning, sir. We'll also ask for the record that you enter your name, address, and phone number so that you're on record as speaking today. Please come forward.
Hello, my name is Bob Watnick.
Okay, Bob, I'm going to ask you have to speak into the microphone very closely. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bob Watnick. I own the property on 297 Christina, which will be backing on to the complex. Now, I went to my car, so I happened to miss all the comments that were made earlier. So I have a couple concerns. One is on our last meeting, we were talking about drainage. Since nobody's here from the corporation, we were concerned about drainage in the backyards, as my backyard would be going on to theirs. That's one major concern. Also, I see they reorganized it, changed the road, and made the road exit going onto Barton Street. Now, they said they weren't going to do that before, but when they exit onto Barton Street, are they going to put a stop sign there, or are they looking to put a stoplight there? Because at first, over where Glover Road is, that's only a couple hundred feet over to the exit. Before they had two exits, I think one going on Glover Road and one going on Willow Lane. Now, the one on Willow Lane didn't make those people kind of happy, so I see they've changed it. So one of my concerns would be, what are they going to do on Barton Street there? And also with my property going back onto it, there's already a 6-foot chain link fence there. Do they have any plans for privacy, or is it's just the fence that's there, it's just going to stay there, or whatever they have planned? I'd kind of like to know that. And that's about it.
Thank you, Mr. Watnick. Bob, I apologize. I thought you were the owner of the property, so you are a resident in the vicinity.
I own the property at 297.
Correct, not this property, though. Thank you.
No.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Delia, I'm going to turn to Delia that she can answer your questions, hopefully.
Through Madam Chair, to the member of the public. Staff have not done a comprehensive review of the development because we are we are guided by the Planning Act requirements to review applications and to make a decision within 120 days. And so staff is recommending the denial. We haven't done the thorough review that includes the profiles, the urban design of the development, because staff considers the applications premature at this time.
Thank you, everyone. Seeing no other speakers from the audience, I will close off to the floor, and I'll ask my committee members a motion to receive the presentations. Moved by Councillor Aidan Johnson, second by Councillor Connolly. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. And I'm going to just relinquish the floor to Councillor Johnson.
Please go ahead, Councillor.
Only as everybody has seen the correspondence from Councillor Brenda Johnson, and certainly as the abutting councillor and very well and familiar with the Fruitland Road, Scooby, Stony Creek Urban Boundary Review and the whole history on that particular item. I concur with Councillor Johnson. This is premature. It's not fair until we know exactly what the rules are going to be finalized for the Scooby. My understanding, I can turn to staff, is it's still before the OMB. It's coming in June, if I'm not mistaken, and there's 3 appellants still. Mr. Robichaud or who wishes to just
Madam Chairman,
clarify?
the board councillor is correct. The hope is that the secondary plan will come into the board, will issue the order approving the secondary plan, save and except for those site-specific appeals, and that should happen in the summer of 2016.
Thank you. So on that, are there any questions with regards to that? I can I'll leave Councillor Johnson and the chair.
I'll hand the chair over. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions to that of staff? No. So everyone is aware, certainly supportive of staff's recommendation, as the ward councillor is as well. So with that, then, we have a motion before us. I won't move it, so I'm going to ask someone else. Councillor Brenda Johnson, Councillor Matt Green, moved and seconded. That's, or sorry, Councillor Judy Partridge, I said, and Councillor Matt Green. Pardon me. And it's the recommendation is be denied. All in favour? Carried. Thank you, everyone. Okay, we're going to move on now to our public notices. It's item 7.1, and in that we have the business licensing bylaw review and rewrite, building exterior cleaners, Schedule 5, mobile homes and mobile home parks, Schedule 10, and sign posters and bill distributors, example, etc., Schedule 24, PED 16075. These are citywide. Madam Clerk, I'm going to turn to you. Has anyone registered to speak on these today?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. So I'll go to the audience. Is anyone here wishing to speak to these bylaw amendments, rewords, or reviews and rewrites that are before us from the public? Anyone? Seeing none, thank you. I'm going to turn to committee then. Are there any questions from committee members to staff then with regards to any of these review and rewrites of the business licenses? Seeing none then, may I have a motion on the staff report? Moved by Councillor Connolly, seconded by Councillor Skelly. All in favour? Thank you. Thank you, staff. Very efficient. Okay, now we're going to turn down to 8.1 is the pool enclosures bylaw, PED 13126, citywide. Again, we'll just let staff do a bit of a shuffle there. Last November, committee referred the pool enclosure bylaw back to staff, and staff had prepared a new report, which is before you today. We did have a delegation wishing to speak to item 8.1 respecting the pool enclosure bylaw, but first we will hear the staff presentation, and I invite, is George here? George is here, George Caetano, to the podium, please. May I just go to the public? Is anyone here in the public wishing to speak to this bylaw amendment? Thank you, sir.
Pretty good. Good guess. Huh? Good morning, members of Planning Committee, Chair. I guess this is my third time up here on this bylaw proposal. Basically, we were directed to go back for additional public consultation, which we did back in February. But basically, the presentation is dealing with the new proposed pool enclosure bylaw. Maybe I'll lead off a little bit with some statistics, which I think we've gone over some of them. But the main reason this was reviewed is that we're proposing this bylaw amendments is drowning is the second leading cause of preventable death in children under 10 in Canada. Between 2007 and 11, there were 836 drownings. 10% of those were in private pools. Private pools are the #1 settings for drownings for children under the age of 10. And usually it's due to an accidental fall into the pool or the child is not supervised. The safety around the pool, drowning, most people think that they have their eye on the child and nothing's going to happen. But most of them occur when the child is walking or playing along the edge of a pool, and an adult may be nearby, they just don't pay attention, and they fall in the pool, and people think they're going to scream, they don't. A child, usually if it falls in the water, they will drown in as little as 20 seconds. And they don't scream because their lungs will be filled with water. There's no one's going to be able to see them. It's not like you see it in the movies where kids are screaming and wailing. It's a pretty silent killer. Research estimates that 4-sided fencing would prevent 7 of the 10 drownings or new drownings in under 5. The main thing, the Canada Safety Council has some precautions that would prevent drowning also. The first one is the one that would stop all drowning probably if they have active supervision. If there was always an adult within arm's length of a child, they would not drown. The other one that they recommend is wear life jackets. Learn first aid and CPR, put your kids in swimming lessons, and fence off your backyard pool on all 4 sides. In June of 2011, the Office of the Chief Coroner for Ontario released a drowning review report, which made 12 recommendations regarding safety and drowning prevention. The first 2 recommendations were directed at municipal governments. The other ones were directed at things like natural resource, Ministry of Transportation, and deal with regulations on public side of the fence or the public pools. They also we're talking about relating to enclosures and swimming pools, including decorative landscape ponds. These were developed following a review of accidental drownings from May 1st to September 30th in Ontario for May of 2010. This is the recommendation. It's pretty long, but basically at the end of the day what they're saying is you need a fence on 4 sides. That's a certain height, anywhere there's water more than 2 feet in depth. And they're also saying that a home should never open into a pool area. The other one they recommended, the second recommendation was that they retrofit all existing pools. We're not going on that basis. We don't think existing pools, that would be something that no other municipality or other jurisdiction has really done except Australia. In Canada, they haven't done that. There's also a McMaster University study that was conducted by the School of Medicine and by Dr. Cam from the Department of Pediatrics at McMaster University. And what they did is they collected drowning data from the 3 academic hospitals in Hamilton from January 1st, 2004 to December 31st, 2013 for children under 18. This came about because under the first public meeting, they found out we were doing this, so they actually contacted the city saying that timely because we have done a study that addresses this type of issue. In their study, what they found is that there were 61 drowning incidents during that period, and that the majority of drownings occurred in a private pool setting, 44% of them. When they're talking about drowning incidents, it's not just deaths. They're also talking about someone who just falls in the water and has to get medical attention. 70% of the private pool drownings occurred in children between the ages of 1 and 4. And 5 of these incidents resulted in the death of a child. In their view, the majority of private pool drowning incidents in Hamilton occurred when a child was unsupervised or suboptimally supervised. So again, it goes back to that. They weren't supervised. That's when the child ends up in the water drowning. And in their study, they're indicating that the age of 1 to 4 is the most vulnerable population with regards to drowning. And they feel that private pools offer a focal point of prevention. And they support basically what the Office of the Chief Coroner is recommending as a 4-sided fencing as a passive environment that would prevent high-risk demographic children from basically accessing the pool without supervision. Their view still is supervision is the best thing, but they feel the only way to really prevent it is to have a passive barrier between the fence or the pool and the house. If a child can get in the backyard and there's a pool, they will be attracted to that. Basically, that's the way children are. They just go directly into the water. We also did public consultation. Public meetings were held May 27, 2015 and February 10, 2016. Just back to that, the McMaster study, they've also showing that out of the 61 children that were admitted to hospital, there were 10 probably, 10 for every child, 10 probably were not coming into the hospital. They had somebody go to the house or maybe EMS, and they resuscitated the child. So there was no report made to the hospitals. So they're saying there's probably an additional number of kids that were near drownings, but because they got there in time, they didn't report to the hospital. The other thing they note is some of the kids that had near drownings that did end up in the hospital, they ended up with certain things like brain damage or other health issues because of this near drowning. But again, that's data that's not shown in the Office of the Coroner for Ontario because they were just dealing with drownings or deaths. At the public meetings, the industry is generally opposed to the four-sided fencing because they feel it will restrict installation of pools in smaller yards. There's also a cost issue. The Pool and Hot Tub Council of Canada made a presentation. I think Mr. Woods here, he's going to make a presentation also. And while they feel a four-sided fence is an option, they believe in a layered approach and that public awareness and education should be what we concentrate on. Apart from this four-sided fence issue, there was really no other concerns expressed at the public meeting. Staff also received numerous phone calls and emails. I received quite a few emails actually, and the majority were against the four-sided fence again. A couple were in support, but again, the majority were against it. Basically, I got below some of the items that they mentioned. Some of them were suggesting that they thought it was an invasive measure, and they thought that patio locks or alarms would be better. They also said, what if I don't have children? Why do I have to put a fence up? What about education? Which I agree, this education. How about pool covers? Just so we know, we did look at all those options. The alarms, locks, the locks are not a good idea if you're trying to escape in case of a fire. It becomes another issue because usually the locks are put in at 5 feet above the floor to be effective. The problem there is somebody in a wheelchair or a child may not be able to get out of the house in case of an emergency. Alarms, they're battery operated, most of them. People either get used to them or they deactivate them because it becomes annoyance to people. We also looked at, if you don't have children, you may not have children, but you may have people who have children. We had a case in BC where that happened. A child drowned, a parent is visiting someone else. They were close to the pool area, they start talk, before you know it, the child drowns in the water. So that is the situation, is it may not be your child, but it may be someone else's. We also looked at the education. I agree, education is an important part of this, but it's hard to legislate. Can't make people take courses, but I think it is an important matter that we should maybe look at trying to get people aware of the dangers of pools and the importance of supervision and CPR and life vests. Pool covers, we did seriously look at pool covers. There are some out there that are pretty quick, they go on, they can hold the person or people on top of it. However, again, it's dependent on the operator or the homeowner. I can't see someone going inside the house, putting the pool cover in, coming back out, putting it off. It just didn't seem to be an effective as a four-sided fence requirement. We can look at that again, but it's too dependent against on the homeowner. It's like them locking the door. They probably won't. So it's the same idea. We don't recommend pool covers as a replacement for the four-sided fence. So based on those, we made certain recommendations. We're changing the definition of pool to say that it's any body of water more than 2 feet in depth, which is in accordance or in line with the recommendation from the Chief Coroner of Ontario. Our previous bylaw dealt with volume and depth, but it was tricky to enforce. Landscape ponds, the definition of pool will include a landscape pond that's capable of holding water more than 0.6 meters in depth. However, if they had a grate or similar material that's less than 2 feet, they wouldn't have to put a fence around the property. A lot of people have fish or something in that pond, which may be more than below frost, about 6-7 feet. So what they do is they can put a metal grate there that will prevent somebody from falling or drowning in that, or falling more than 2 feet under the water. There are certain exemptions from the landscape pond exemptions or from the pool requirements. Basically, if they're using a farm or an agricultural area that's used for farming, let's say, for livestock or irrigation, they're exempt. Body that's zoned in a rural or agricultural area, a lot of them have ponds or pools in those areas, provided that within 2 meters of the edge, it's not more than 2 feet in depth, we would exempt them from the bylaw. A golf course, obviously, any body of water owned by the public or government entity, and also a river, lake, stream for obvious reasons. You can't put a fence around Lake Ontario, no matter how much we probably like to, can't do it. And also any privately owned stormwater management facility in a rain barrel, provided it is a certain size. Yes. Be surprised what kids drown in. The pond is a good example. In Toronto, that's where this whole thing came about. There was a child that drowned in a pond. It was about 3 feet deep, and there was no fence around the property. He just walked across from one property to the other, and they were found face down in the water. So that's one of the realities that it does occur. And the other recommendation, probably the contagious one, or the most hotly debated one, is the 4-sided fence around the property or around the pool area. And you can't have any windows or doors that will open into that area. You could technically have windows 4 inches, but a door would be not permitted. And basically, this is some of the examples that people in other areas or in other municipalities that have enforced, they have the 4-sided fence. You have the 2 types of samples. The bylaw will require a fence between the house and the pool that's open. You have to see through it. It couldn't be a solid wood fence. For obvious reasons, you want to be able to see if anyone is around the pool area. But there's different options. It's either a fence right across. It could just enclose the actual pool itself. It could be a 4-foot high chain link or 5-foot high chain link fence. It could be a wrought iron fence. It could be glass combination. There's different options available to a homeowner. It could just be around the door if they want to, like the door of the house. It doesn't have to be the whole property. As long as access from the door of the building into the pool area is restricted. The only recommendation that we're not going with is the retrofitting of existing pools. Like I said, all the other places that I've looked at have 4-sided fence requirements, except for Australia. They don't have retrofitting of existing pools. It'll probably be an undue hardship to anyone that has an existing pool now to make them retrofit it to 4-sided. We were looking at allowing them to replace whatever is there as long as they maintain it. And they want to replace it, they can maintain the pool as it is now, the enclosures. It would not be retroactive. They may wish to do it themselves if they have children, but again, it wouldn't be retroactive. The minimum height of the fence would remain at 5 feet, which is the current requirement under the bylaw, which exceeds the chief coroner's recommendation. Hot tubs would also be included if they're more than 0.6 meters in depth. The requirement is the same as the existing bylaw, except we talked about volume. In this case, we would allow a cover because they're easier to put on, and most people do put covers to protect because you're heating it, and there's other components in the hot tub that you want to make sure are maintained. If you keep it open, you're going to have issues with that hot tub. So this one, if they put a rigid cover that conforms to ASTM standards, they would not require a fence around the property. There's also some additional minor changes. They're editorial in terms of updating the content of the bylaw, and also to allow the chief building official some options as to or allow some new innovative materials that come out in the market. So there's a provision there where the chief building official feels that the proposal meets the intent or is the same level of safety as what's proposed in the bylaw. They could allow an innovative method or material to be implemented. Internationally, we have Australia, New Zealand, and France. They all have passed legislation regarding the 4-sided fencing. The province of Quebec has passed, the whole province basically, they require a 4-sided fence. And the city of Toronto just also is the one in Ontario that I'm aware of. I think it's the only one that has the 4-sided fence requirement, and they had it there since 2008. And Toronto is interesting because I read their report to committee and council, and they actually did a chart saying they looked at all the options as to how easy to implement, how passive is it, how much effective is, and the four-sided fence came up on top. They looked at alarms, they looked at pool covers, so they did an interest. I wish I had had that before we did our report, but it's an interesting scenario. It was an interesting way that they looked at it. They weighted each one as to how easy and how passive it was. And basically the four-sided fence, like I said, it's a passive barrier and would reduce the number of deaths and drowning incidents under the age of 5. This is mainly targeted to children under the age of 5. Once you get beyond that age, they know their way around. 10-year-old, 12-year-old is going to climb over a fence. There's nothing you can stop. You can't stop them. In terms of adults, this is not to prevent them. It's for those children that, you don't pay attention for the 20 seconds or 30 seconds. And that's what this whole thing is addressed, why the Chief Coroner of Ontario is recommending this. It's not for the general population. It's for a certain type of, for basically a child that can't defend themselves. And they're not here to speak up either. If they could, I think they would say, I would want the four-sided fence, but they don't have the skills at this point to be able to do that or to tell us what they feel. So it's to their protection. The other thing I have here is a short video. It's about a minute long from Dr. Lauders. He's the Deputy Chief Coroner from the Office of the Chief Coroner of Ontario, and he was part of this review. And in this 1-minute clip, basically just summarizing some of the highlights. I'm not going to play the whole 20 minutes, but just a small section of it. One of the clips. It comes actually from the Chief Coroner's website, the Ontario website.
Well, we made up 12 in total, but there are 3 principles where we think that recommendations were necessary. A really feature of our study was that 22 of 21 individuals who were not wearing life jackets. And that's a strong message that tells us that life jackets are necessary in boaters. And that's both in boaters that are in powered boats and unpowered boats like canoes. So that would be one area of recommendation that we made. The second is the one that I gave. There needs to be four-sided fencing around pools. And in other jurisdictions, they've enacted and proclaimed municipal bylaws that require this. And City of Toronto, for example, and I believe Quebec as well has legislation with regard to that. And the last one, and a very significant and important one, is kids need to be taught how to swim. They need to understand what safety is around the water, and they need to be taught how to swim. So we're not advocating, but strongly recommending that swimming lessons be provided to children.
And that's my presentation. Thank you.
George, any questions of committee to George? Councillor Skelly.
Thank you for your presentation. Through the chair, first of all, I'm really struggling with this because of the subject matter and the seriousness of this subject matter, but we all want to do anything and everything we can to prevent the death of anyone, let alone a child. And not today, but in many years ago when my children were much younger, I had a house with a pool, and I can tell you there wasn't 1 second of any day that didn't go by that I wasn't thinking about my children or anybody's child walking into the backyard and possibly going into the pool and drowning. Having said that, I'm really struggling with what you're proposing and what I consider a heavy-handed approach to something that almost suggests what I would call living within the nanny state. In the coroner suggests that parents of where our children are, and especially children under 5. The money that people spend on their backyard to enjoy a pool or to enjoy the backyard usually involves having access to the backyard from inside the house. What you're proposing, I don't necessarily think would prevent all deaths of a child who falls into a pool. I want to take you back to some of the pictures. You had a picture of the 4-sided fence around a pool, and then of course lounge chairs. Very true, when a child falls into a pool, they don't make a lot of noise, they don't attract a lot of attention. But if you're reading a book, if you're in this pool on the right, your child could still fall in the pool. You could be distracted, you could be leaving the area to go and barbecue a hot dog for kids. That doesn't necessarily mean that a child can't slip into the pool and go unnoticed and within 20 seconds, consume enough water that they could drown. Aesthetically, I don't think a lot of homes would lend themselves. These are fairly large yards. Not every yard is that large. And I'm not sure how you would put a 4-sided fence in a home preventing access from the house. There's so many other things that could be done, and you mentioned them. The alarm, a motion-sensitive alarm, requiring parents to teach children how to swim at a very young age. Kids can go into the water in pools right now at 6 months of age, and they have a natural instinct to float if they fall into a pool. Parents and families should be really required to be much more aware of what's going on and how to keep their children safe if they do choose to put in a pool. Your first slide, I think, referenced the drowning was the number 2 cause of preventable death with children under between 1 and 5. What is number 1?
Through the chair, number 1 is vehicle accidents.
As in
vehicle, car accidents.
In the car or running out and being struck by a car?
Could be either one. It's just vehicle impact or collisions or running over. Yeah, it could be either one.
One of my big issues when I had a child, when my children were much younger, was them running onto the street. But I had a fenced-in backyard. I didn't have a fenced-in front yard and a fence across my driveway. I mean, at what point, where do we draw the line? I think having a fenced-in backyard and parents with locks on doors so that children can't gain access to that yard. Do you not think that is a reasonable measure to take?
Through the chair, we did look, locks would be contrary to the building code because you can't have, basically to get out of the building, you can't have a lock that can't be opened without a key, or you can't have a lock that's 4 feet above or 5 feet above the floor. Somebody in a wheelchair or a small child, if there's a fire, they wouldn't be able to get out of the building. The alarms, we did look at alarms. Some places do allow it. In the United States, some of the states do it. Again, a lot of the studies have shown people deactivate them because they don't want to replace the batteries, like smoke detectors and CO detectors. People just don't put the batteries in or take them out. They become nuisance, or the people just become desensitized to them. Oh, they hit that little ding and they ignore it. In terms of your other comment regarding the things around I do agree with you that education, the parent, I made a note, it's number 1 is if the parent is within arm's reach of that child, they're not going to drown. It's not what's happening. Yes, I agree. If somebody's in that pool area, in that lounge chair, and they take away again, that's education. They shouldn't have the child shouldn't be in that pool area without supervision or without constant supervision. If they're in there and the person decides to go out and get something in the house, that's when the child is probably going to drown. We can't legislate education. We can't legislate that parents teach their kids to swim. We can't legislate that if they have a pool, you got to have CPR. You have to have, all these other life vests. It can't be legislated. Then we're really in a state where we're trying to over-legislate possibly, but how would you enforce it? Go to their house? Oh, where's your certificate that they can swim? It's difficult. And I agree, it is a hard issue. The 4-sided fence is the main, and I think Robert Wood from the Pool Council will give the other side of it. Yes, but I agree with you that parents are the number 1. If there was constant supervision, we wouldn't be here. There wouldn't be a coroner's report. And I'll be honest with you, a 4-sided fence is not 100% either. I'm saying it'll maybe save 7 out of 10. Children will still get in that area somehow. parents will leave the gate open, guarantee you. Some people will it happened in Australia. They have the four-sided fence. People are finding now that deaths have gone up again. You know why? Because parents or homeowners are maintaining the gates. They go there and they're looking at maybe looking at proactive enforcement. They have to inspect these gates all the time or these fences. I don't want to get into that situation, but parents are not maintaining the gate, so what happens? They open, so the four-sided fence is useless, right? So I agree with you that education, though, is the number one. It's hard to make it to legislate it, to make it mandatory.
Through the chair, and I think you're actually making more arguments on my side, and that is the point that people do leave the gates open, and you can still have a child gain access and drown in a pool simply by forgetting or leaving, because people get into habits and they'll just leave the gate open. I wanted to ask you about how many deaths, do we have any statistics to show that the deaths of these children occurred from children gaining access to the pool through the house?
Well, the McMaster University, it's showing that, and also the coroners. That's why they're recommending four-sided fence. In all those instances, there was no four-sided fence on the property.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking you, did they gain access through a door through the house?
I don't know the exact numbers, but most of them did.
We know that for a fact.
Yes.
You know for a fact that this study stated that the child that drowned entered the area because there was a door unattended?
In some of the cases, yes.
In some of the cases?
Yes.
But not all of the cases?
I can't say for sure. I don't have that data. I know the one in Ancaster, yes, it was through the door. I know one in BC, it was not through the door. It was somebody sitting at a bench or sitting down talking to somebody else, and they didn't notice the child falling in the water.
But that's my point.
Yes.
They didn't notice the child falling in the water. You
Yes.
referenced a child. We know children that drown at beaches. We know children that drown in ponds. You've mentioned that. You can't make life completely safe for every child. I think the onus has to be placed on the parent, and I think taking more reasonable, perhaps more rational approaches and less, putting up a fence and in keeping the pool enclosed and perhaps saying you must have a motion sensitive alarm would be a reasonable way of enforcing or helping or preventing further deaths of children. Would you not suggest that it could happen? We could suggest this. We could put in legislation that would force families and pool owners to have alarms?
You can basically pass, deny, or amend the bylaws if you see fit. Whether the province wants to get involved, that's a different issue, like Quebec did. Don't know. In terms of alarms, the ones that are sensitive in the water, they're not very good, from what I understand. And the fact there is, if the alarm goes off and you're up on the second floor of your house, you may have a hard time running to that pool area. But I agree, if the person is at arm's length to that child, it will not, child will not drown. And I'll go back to the other one. The four-sided fence will prevent deaths. The studies have shown that. The problem there is the education to the public and other issues that come about. This is just a passive way of doing it, and that's what the coroner and McMaster University are recommending. It's not something that I came up with, I put four-sided fence up, it's a good idea. It's like CO detectors or fire alarms or smoke alarms. People take out the battery. Why would you do that? Think about it. Like, why would you not put your seatbelt and get in the car? Well, I don't feel like it. Well, it's been legislated that you have to, but people still don't follow the rules. This is not going to prevent all deaths. There's no question there. It's not meant for that. And that I can tell you for a fact. But it's still up to the planning committee to decide. I think we have to make a decision one way or the other, because I think it's not fair to the city or to the pool installers or the homeowners that they don't know which way we're going with this. I think we have to make a decision on it. I'm also recommending that whatever we decide, whether it's to pass it or amend it, it doesn't take effect until January of next year because the pool season has started. So I don't think it's fair to the industry that we impose any changes right now, not until January 1st.
Hamilton, last year, did we have children drowning in pools?
I don't have that from last year. I have the study from McMaster from 2009 to 2013.
And this was in Hamilton?
Yes, McMaster University. I'm pretty sure they're in Hamilton. They did this. They did a drowning data was collected from all 3 hospitals in the Hamilton area from January 1st to December 31st of 2013. I do not have the data for last year. And basically their study shows there were 61 drowning incidents. And the drowning incidents, not just deaths, there could be somebody that was brought into an emergency room that were found in the pool. Right?
Yeah, but again, we don't have the specifics as to how that happened. Was a gate left open? We don't know if these 61 drowning incidents occurred because a person accessed a pool through an interior or an exterior door. An exterior door of a home.
Through the chair, the actual study does indicate that most of them, I think most all of them, I have the study upstairs. It was done. There was no four-sided fence on the property. That's what they do know for a fact. Whether they accessed it through the house, some do, but they don't have the exact numbers now. You'd have to talk to the people that did the study.
But again, I just through the chair, I just want to clarify. There is no data suggesting that these deaths occurred because a person entered the pool area through a door, an exterior door of the home. We don't know that.
We do have some data that some of the deaths were due to children.
What are some of the deaths?
Yes, some of the deaths.
How many?
Don't have that number, but I know one for sure that I know that I'm aware of.
1 out of the 61. There
was more than that. You have to look at the study. I don't want to comment on the study, right?
We should know that.
Well, it's up to you. The recommendation is the same, that they still need four-sided fence. They've done the study. They know from their experience, from their expertise, from their studies, and the coroner of Ontario is the same. They didn't make this recommendation based on not having that data or some data. I don't think they would have picked four-sided fence saying, what the heck, let's put four-sided fence. The majority of cases, I have a feeling, were coming from the house, as Australia has shown in their studies.
Speakers, let's have Councillor Connolly, then Councillor.
Through you. We talk about education, and I certainly agree with education. Is Hamilton as a city going to put out any brochures, anything to especially installers of recommendations that could you have them up here? It's just a matter of getting it out to the public. Are we going to do any proactive instructions?
Through the chair, I think Mr. Wood's going to dwell on that point a little bit. He's from the Pool Council of Canada, and I think there is some education that's involved. We do put out information once a year about the permit, need for a permit for it, but I think there is some more additional information that could go out to the public, whether it's through ads on buses, radio ads, or something that we should be. But that may be something more for the health unit. So that's where a little bit of an issue is who does this public education. It's usually the health unit that does it.
I really think if the city's going to do these measures, that we have to educate the public, and putting it on the side of a bus is not the way to educate somebody. Something that they take with them when they buy a pool, or we have a record of everybody that has a pool, we can send it out to them, but there has to be something proactive to depend on a bus sign. I don't think I ever look at bus signs. I might, but I don't think that's the way to educate the public.
Well, through the chair, and I think Robert Wood from the Pool and Spa Council of Canada, they do have some things that they can hand out, that the installers could hand out to the homeowners, that they can, basically, there's signs that, I didn't bring it with me, I don't know if Mr. Wood did, signs that go up to gain the rules, what they should have close by, what they should be doing when somebody's in the pool, so they can actually read that. It's right in, and they get there when they get by the pool. We can look at also doing something for us. We do a little package that we can give to homeowners, where we can look at our brochures ourselves. We do have brochures. We can look at updating them.
I don't think I want to decide how we do it, but I think something should be done on a proactive basis. So they're covered. Now, I'm just trying to understand. Really, right now they need. What is it, a 5-foot, right now with the old rules, is it a 5-foot fence around their property?
Through the chair, yes, they just need a 5-foot fence around the property on basically three sides. The house can open directly into it.
Now, with the new rules, is there a 5-foot fence still required, plus the fence around the pool?
No, just around the pool area itself.
On the pool.
The other fences wouldn't have to conform to the pool enclosure bylaw. The other thing to note is, through the chair, for an above-ground pool, they may already meet the 5-foot height, so they may not need a fence at all around the property.
Right. Now, if I had the old pool and covered on 3 sides, could I just put the see-through fence from one side of the fence to the other side, so with a gate on it, so that covers 4 sides, and you can see it from the house or whatever? Is that
through the chair? Yes, that would be acceptable. Yes.
good?
You could also put a fence just around the doorway, like a small gate around.
So you could keep your you could keep your existing fence. I mean, you have to keep it, I guess, but you could just put something around the doorway so it's not easy for a child to go out and get into the pool. Is that right?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Thank you. Is that hot tubs? Does that rule start the same time as pools, January of 2017?
Through the chair, that's correct. What I would propose is nothing starts till January 1st of next year.
And if I bought a permit to build a pool in November, but the rule came in January, am I under the old rules or the new rules?
Through the chair, we would be under whatever date that the permit is issued. That's where you'd be under that current bylaw that's in effect.
So if I got the permit in September, October, but I didn't build till the next spring, I'm covered under the old rules.
Through the chair, what we've done, we've looked at it, we'd say we give them like a 6-month grace period from January 1st to June of the year to install it.
I like that. And that's some other ones here. I agree with what you're doing. You know, I don't think it matters how many children have got drowned, but if we can save one kid this year, I'd be happy that would potentially have drowned. So, and I think there's ways, not around the bylaw, but like you're saying, you could just build a little fence or put it across from fence to fence, and you're covered. I don't see a huge problem there. I've had 3 or 4 calls on this, and I couldn't answer all their questions, and that's why I'm asking you some of the questions now. But I will definitely support it, and because safety, we talk about it with driving, and driving was brought up. You know, we're putting a lot of our roads down to 40 clicks, and it's safety. It's the only reason we're doing it, safety. You know, if you get hit going 40 clicks an hour, it's a lot less severe than if you get hit going 50 clicks an hour. At my ward about safety. And this is all, I will support it, and I'm glad it's coming through. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Green.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And on this one, we have a extensive coroner's report. And there you go, deliver a little high five action. Certainly a well-deliberated and thought-out report. And I don't believe this is an invasive project. I think retrofitting it gives people the opportunity moving forward, or at least with the retroactive clause, gives people the opportunity moving forward to know exactly what they're getting into when it comes to their pools. And you know, Councillor Connolly made the comment that if it's to save one life, but looking at that, you know, 44% of 61's got to be at least 25 kids. So that's substantial, it's material, and it's certainly not one-off. And if we can do our part to support that, I'm certainly willing to take whatever criticism comes my way from any, you know, conversations of the nanny state or whatever. So I fully support this motion, and thank you for your work on it.
Councillor Partridge.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, George. I appreciate all the work that you've done. I know that this is one that's very close to your heart, and your passion is coming through, and you've more than done your homework on it. So I appreciate that. I just have a couple of questions. Under the list of exempt properties, one of them is a privately owned stormwater management facility. And I'm just curious about the use of the word facility. Should that not be a stormwater pond?
Through the chair, that was the intent. The legal was the one that used that wording. Anything that the city has for stormwater management, some people consider those to be as dangerous, but usually they don't have.
Right, stormwater ponds.
Through the chair, that's correct, yes.
All right, thank you, because we do have several of them in Waterdown, and I can tell you there's a lot of water in those ponds. and fish and trees and bushes. So then, if I can, Madam Chair, I'd like to just spend a little bit of time on our alternatives for consideration. You've got two alternatives listed here, and I'm wondering if you could just, for the benefit of those who are watching and listening, if you could just do an overview of those two alternatives for me, please.
Through the chair, basically the alternative is to keep the existing bylaw the way it is, not to amend it. But I think in that case, we don't have a chance to even update what's in the bylaw. The second option that I'm giving in the report is to remove the four-sided fence requirement, because that seems to be the only issue that really came up as a hot potato, let's say. But I would recommend that we allow all the other amendments that we're proposing just to update the bylaw. That way we don't have a bylaw that's outdated in terms of construction requirements and in terms of definitions. So that was still my second recommendation.
So, and just to, again, for the benefit of the folks in the room and those who are watching, if we remove, if we go with the alternative, which is B, that you're referring to, and if we just removed the four-sided enclosure, what is left that would be different than the existing bylaw?
Through the chair, as I said, we basically the ponds will be included, and the hot tubs will be more clearly defined as to that they are part of it, and that a cover would be exempt them. Right now, technically, if a hot tub is over 1,000 liters, they'd have to have a fence around the property. So this would just clarify it for those people with spas, or that they, if they have a hot tub, put a cover, which most of them do, that conforms to the standards. They wouldn't have to put a fence around it, and also this would include ponds, which is not included. It's included in the existing bylaw, but the wording is a little bit. It'll be hard to enforce, I think, under the current bylaw.
Right. So the wording is not as there's not as much clarity around the wording as there could be.
Through the chair, that's correct. Yes.
And so, just so I'm clear and I understand, this bylaw would not affect rural properties or agricultural zoned properties. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is the intent of the bylaw. It's not, if it was like I said, if it's for farming purposes, it wouldn't include it. If it's a natural body of water, it wouldn't include it. If it's a pond in a rural area, it may, but it depends. We want to make sure that it doesn't just drop off within 2 meters of the edge. It's not more than 2 feet deep. Then it could drop. So they wouldn't require a fence.
Right. So, and if it's used for livestock,
no fence required.
Then it would be exempt as well.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. And I guess where I'm struggling a little bit is with the ponds in people's backyards. It's particularly the ornamental ponds, and some of them are quite large. And I understand it's the 2 meters from the edge, and that's all the way around the edge. Is that the measure?
Through the chair, that's for in a rural setting. In an urban setting, it could be more than 2 feet in depth, the whole pond.
The whole pond.
Or unless you put a grate or something under it, so you couldn't go more than 2 feet into it. So it could be more than 2 feet deep, but either you put a fence or you put a grate or a metal grate at the bottom, so you couldn't fall in deeper than 2 feet.
Okay. So, and that's the one, I guess, that I have the issue with is the ponds, because there's an awful lot of ponds that are ornamental ponds that people have in their backyards. And to then be required to put a four-sided fence around that pond within a small backyard that may not even have a pool, I'm just not so what would be the purpose of having the pond at all if you're going to obstruct the view with fencing? So I could see some pushback for that. I thank you for answering the questions. I am leaning towards the alternative on B, but I would like to hear from any residents that are going to come down and speak, and from other council members around the table. Thank you. Thank you, George.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Pasuda, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair Pearson. I'm going to follow up on a few things that Councillor Skelly was working on. We're looking here in the report down here. It talks about drownings in ages 1 to 4 children. Responsible. We teach our kids, people teach their kids not to street. It's amazing to see how many small kids are out there on the sidewalks with their parents on bicycles and that, with much traffic, but they seem to have time to teach and be responsible. Talk about teaching kids to swim. My son and his fiance, they have a little Rosie, and she's 8 months now, and she started 6 months taking them to the pool over to Milton, and now they just, Rosie at 8 months, they toss her in, and she's just going. Not everybody does that, but teaches their kids. But she's doing that because we're on the farm and we have ponds and we have the lake behind us. That's one of the reasons. Madam Chair, I'm just wondering here, by putting the fence up, does this create a false sense of security for parents or other family members out there? Let's say you got teenagers and mom's in the kitchen doing something or in the living room, and the teenagers are out there with their friends and doing things, and little ones are around the pool, and then they have the little one come out. They don't close the gate behind them, typically, as a lot of teenagers do. Almost say, where's Rosie? And Rosie's outside, but the gate's closed. Does it create a false sense of security that, are you not better off to have that open where you're going to be more responsible than thinking this false sense that the gate may be locked because one of the other kids or friends are over didn't lock the gate? It's just my fear that it's going to take away some of the responsibility because people may be thinking the fence is there and not focus on the fact that the pool is open.
Through the chair, I think as a parent, if I was a parent, I would make sure that gate is closed, and it would give me a sense of security knowing that fence is closed. If I have a child, if I have a teenager, they're going to go over that fence. They can open the gate. It's not meant to stop them. Whether it gives them a sense, it's like I mean, is that the coroner and the McMaster said it's a passive way. If it's not maintained, it's not going to work. If you leave the gate open, it's not going to work. I do have the McMaster study. They're actually saying four-sided fence. There were 2 of the incidents were related to they had four-sided fence, and they still ended up in the pool. With no four-sided fence, they're saying there were 10 incidents that they went to the hospital. And unknown is like the rest of it is unknown. They didn't know if there was four-sided fence or not. So what they're saying, the four-sided fence, yes, it'll give you a sense of security, but that's what it should do. If I put my seatbelt on, it gives me a sense of security that I'm not going to fall out of the car in case of an accident. But that's the idea. It is a sense of security to the parent. I, as a parent, still have to make sure that gate is locked. I still have to keep an eye out on that kid. If I see him fooling around with that gate, I'm going to go out there and stop him. If I don't, then I might end up, it's my fault not supervising. I agree. If I supervise my child properly, or a parent does, they should run in a pool or a pond or a lake or anything, right? But that's something hard to, if that was the case, parents were 100% looking after their child, this would never be a drowning. It's not like a vehicle where the child may go in front of a car. That's an intention. And I agree with what the councillor said here, is that in my area, the speed 50 or 60, same idea. It's in this case.
Well, for me, and I'm Madam Chair, I'm feeling a little bit like I'm being lectured here. I raised 7 kids on the farm with a lot of chemicals around, animals around, where they could have got hurt, trucks and tractors steady every day. And we watched 7 kids, yes, little incidents, they got their fingers cut in that, but responsible parents. It's responsible parenting that we need to look at here too. And we just can't have, I still, and I'll stay to my last breath, that the fence for many people is going to create a false sense of security because older children doing things, another issue. To me, it's creating a false sense of security by putting up the gate there, and parents, as I said, they miss the opportunity to. But anyhow, I'm going to leave. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. And seeing no other speakers, I'm going to relinquish chair, just make a few comments, and then we'll go to the public delegation.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. So, George, thank you, and I am supporting this. And I think I mentioned way back in November when we initially had this come forward, I did have a pool at one time, and nobody ever wants to see a child enter a pool that is not educated, and you don't have control of that. And I had it happen, and believe me, it's a split second of turning your back. I was there. And a child just slides in, and they're at the bottom. And I can tell you without a doubt that this child is the same age as my daughter. And I was not aware that she wasn't comfortable with swimming or even aware of it. And she did go down. I got her out immediately. I mean, there wasn't even a breath that was taken. But that child, to this day, at the age of 31, will not go near a body of water. And it's really unfortunate. Okay? And I feel bad. I feel guilty of that. And there was absolutely nothing I can do. And this bylaw is not going to fix it for everyone. But it gives that one more little bit. We're not here to say, well, wait, let's do it when we have 100 incidences or 100 deaths. We need to implement it now so we can at least continue to educate residents. I see people all the time when I attend residents' properties where, you know, the pool's all nice, it's out there, and I'm going to see an issue, and it's all open. And how do they know when they're in the house that some little neighborhood child hasn't come, snuck through a gate at the side of the property, and that whole backyard is open? You know, and there's so many things I see when I watch, and it's where are the property owners that need to be responsible? It doesn't even have to be kids that are playing with their kids in the pool. Perfect strangers that get in there. You know, 1.5 meters, 5 feet. I had an above-ground pool. It had the required 5-foot fence all the way around. It had a self-locking gate. But you know what? They still get in. That's not saying we're going to stop that. It's just there's that little bit more of watching it. To say alarms, we looked at alarms saying, well, we'll do anything. No, I think it would only have created more of a nuisance. That alarm goes off, no difference in a smoke detector. Okay, mom's cooking in the kitchen is our home. So, till you're done. You didn't hear that, Ed. Anyways, kids can drown in 2 inches of water in a 5-gallon bucket, and we know that. Going to stop people from leaving buckets out and around? No, but the responsibility of homeowners, of parents, of what they have and respect what they have in their properties. I don't think a 4-sided fence all the way around a pool is a hardship. There's so many new things on the market, as George mentioned, glass fencing or things that you can see that are going to impede their enjoyment and the aesthetics of their landscaping. You know, there's so many things that can be done. But if it saves one life, as was mentioned, then I'm hopeful that we are a part of that as a committee of planning and council. We have, you know, the hot tub issue, and I know an owner's issue on homeowners that already have the existing. And we'd hope that what they feel their needs are all the time. I went to a neighborhood where when we first moved in, you know what, there were no children. And my children came along and there were children. And now there are no children. But they're constantly revolving. So you never know. And these things, you never know what's going to happen in your yard. And I understand and sympathize with some of the concerns, and we're not coming down with a heavy hand on people who have pools or hot tubs. And I guess one of my questions, because we did have correspondence, I only received one to do with hot tubs. So the concern was that we're not going to require existing ones. But on our GIS system, you can't always see where there is a hot tub in a backyard. How can residents deal with it? I know how we can't, but I'd like staff to elaborate, that they can deal with that so that it goes on a record somewhere that it is noted, so there is no question going forward. George, can you answer that, please?
Through the chair, if someone's concerned to that point, they could give it to us in writing at this point, before a bylaw is passed. We did that for billboard signs. We confirmed we have all of them before the bylaw was passed, because we wanted the same thing, what's grandfathered. If you can't see it on GIS, I'd say get back to us before the end of the year. We can confirm and make a note of it. We can take a stat declaration from a neighbor or something saying that the pool was there on that date. It's not like it's going to be going back 50 years. It's just a year, let's say. Most of the cases do have covers already anyway, so they're not going to be impacted by this proposed bylaw anyway.
Exactly, and that's what I want to reiterate. And I'd be happy to certainly stress to residents in my ward through newsletters that, you know, this is something. If you have a concern that they don't know, we can't see it. There may be tree canopy over something and you can't see it. By all means, just call in, take a picture. You know, if you have a time thing on the camera, even better, but take a picture, send it in, and it can be recorded, and we know that it's there. You're going to have neighbors around you that will be able to stipulate as well. So there's always ways to deal with these. But again, if I had to say anything, if this just saves one life, it educates more people, it's the right step to go. Thank you, everyone. I'll take the chair back. Councillor?
Thanks very much. I hand it over.
Thank you. I'm going to now ask that we receive George's presentation, moved by Councillor Connolly, second by Councillor Green. All in favour? Carried. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to call upon Robert Wood of the Pool and Hot Tub Council of Canada to the podium for your delegation, sir.
Thank you. Whoops. Oh. Quite an introduction. Madam Chair, good morning, members of the Planning Committee, staff, and citizens. My name is Robert Wood. I'm the Executive Director of the Pool and Hot Tub Council of Canada.
Have fun in your pool this by supervising children in and around. Make sure young children are weak swimmers at all times. Even better, and learn first. Ottawa. Considering that representatives of the City of Hamilton wish to make a meaningful difference and save lives in connection with the reuse of residential swimming pools, we request that we all consider in this room strongly consider strategies that have proven effective in other jurisdictions around the world. Specifically, the endorsement of a layered approach to safety that extends beyond merely physical barriers. It is an approach that includes public education as well. The Pool and Hot Tub Council of Canada has extensive experience in working successfully with organizations and municipalities to promote water safety and drowning prevention. Videos like the one you just saw why is that clicking on? Videos like the one you just saw, signs such as this one, this is backyard pool and spa safety rules, safety activity books for children around the pools. We have a dedicated website to water safety, and we also even have a model municipal bylaw that we've provided the councillors today. The objectives of our efforts in this domain have been twofold. One, to ensure all communities have swimming pool fencing bylaws in place. What's going on with that? I'll go over there and do that. And number two, create a safe backyard environment for young children who are at the highest risk. To effectively protect toddlers requires the adoption of a layered approach to safety. It is important to note that active enforcement, owner has the potential to fail. Sadly, out in Australia and Arizona, you have some updated Australian statistics to ponder. Just before Marcus outlines our recommendations, I would like to briefly report on a conversation between Dr. Skinner and myself with respect to the drowning report that his office issued in 2011. When recently, Skinner stated that his committee had not considered other options at the time. Since we met, he's provided the following response. It clearly feasible alternative. Marcus?
Do a quick introduction about myself. I started Forest City Pool and Patio in 1986 in London, Ontario. I've been active with the Pool Council and the City of London for 30 years. I'm currently the President of the Pool and Hot Tub Council of Canada and have served on numerous boards with regards to drowning prevention in London and surrounding area, hence my presence here today. A few years ago, Rob and I met with the Deputy Chief Coroner Dr. Lowers and spoke with him about his recommendations of four-sided fencing. He agreed that four-sided fence is not the end-all be-all. He himself had a near drowning experience with his own family, and his child was only inches away from him when he was in an indoor pool in Florida. We agreed that adult supervision and education, along with supplementary layers of safety, would be a good approach to drowning prevention for young children. Part of the next draft recommendations the office does. The Pool and Hot Tub Council takes drowning prevention very seriously. We have spent well over $100,000 just in the province in the last 5 years for drowning prevention campaigns. I'm currently working with the London Middlesex Health Unit for the 2016 drowning children under the age of 5. For the layers of protection, families that are in the market to build a swimming pool realize that or rent houses with existing pools that we need to educate, and unfortunately are not, and we're not targeting them in the proposed City of Hamilton's bylaw change. Using common sense and getting our message out through drowning prevention campaigns like in London, for example, will be further ahead. Unfortunately, more children drown in bathtubs under the age of 5. We need to educate all parents that have swimming pools with small children, not mandate bylaws that only target parents who are building a swimming pool, who are most likely already aware of the dangers of water, who have taken appropriate measures for safety. We agree that four-sided fencing is one layer of protection for families with small children. There are multiple other layers of protections families can consider as well, instead of four-sided fencing, but that should be their choice. Many cities like London and have strong swimming homeowner as to which supplementary layer of protection they want for their family. The City of Hamilton already has a strong swimming pool fence bylaw in place. We recommend that citizens should be given the opportunity to select which layers of protection they require for their young families. The Pool and Hot Tub Council would be pleased to work with the City of Hamilton in the education of its citizens on the importance of drowning prevention. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Yes, thank you, gentlemen. Councillor Green first and Councillor Partridge.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Through you, I certainly appreciate your willingness to work with municipalities on education. Should we pass the four-sided fence bylaw, would you still be willing and open to participating in education like you did with Ottawa with that nice video, perhaps something locally, or what would be your thoughts if we passed that bylaw today?
We're going to support, it's part of our mandate. I'm sorry, I guess I should use the mic. It's part of our mandate to help communities right across the country in terms of drowning prevention and water safety as a whole. So we're going to support whatever happens. We'd like to see a more, I guess, holistic approach to this, even as Dr. Skinner has shown.
We have statistics, and we didn't want to, when we went through this in London and other municipalities, and we do have statistics, and we didn't want to turn this into a statistics game, because that's what has happened and got over it. So, I mean, there are statistics on drownings. There were 7 deaths with children under the age of 5. 2 of those deaths were in above ground. An above ground pool that didn't require to have a fence around it because it already met the current bylaws of the municipality. 3 of the drownings had 4 known, which means we don't know if they had a 3-sided fence or a 4-sided fence. In Ontario, really, is that some municipalities don't have a swimming pool fence bylaw. And so,
if I could just go back to the question, you certainly answered it. I do appreciate the supplementary information, but I do have supplementary questions.
Okay.
I can totally appreciate where you're going with it, but I don't want to take away from other questions. You've referenced conversations with Dr. Skinner, and yet the only submitted quote that I have in here is regarding it's on the message, a submission regarding that. I just caution, because you're kind of third partying putting words in somebody, there's water or pool regulations for conversation, and I broached them on thousands of dollars in an automatic emailed back to me, said there have been any deaths. I guess the caution that I have is you can appreciate why some people might see, particularly, I mean, that's a very costly intervention from the industry versus a fence industry, and you know, I'm sure there could be some cost analysis of those two features, but when you reference, you know, a doctor who happens to be the coroner and not provide a letterhead where he's actually going on the record to make that statement, it, coming from a lobby, be perceived a little bit problematic in that regard. I respect you if that would make you happy. Or perhaps maybe a presentation or with regards to some of the stories. I won't go too far into that. Again, it's kind of just what I'm receiving here in terms of earlier conversations, and so I'm just. Oh, Dr. Lowers. Correct. Dr. Lowers. Sorry, Dr. Lowers. Okay. Yeah. So when doing that, in writing and presented in your appreciate all the information and look forward to working with you on the education piece moving forward.
Thank you, Councillor Partridge.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a quick question. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for your presentation. I'm just looking at this 8.1 document, and on the very bottom, under the recommendations, if you could just clarify for me, it's my understanding from your presentation that that you think the four-sided fencing is not necessary and that we shouldn't have that in our bylaw, or you do want it in there?
We feel that four-sided fencing is a supplementary layer of protection and should not be in your bylaw. So it should be an additional safety measure that can be taken for those families that decide to put a swimming pool in. And what we've done with the City of London is we've taken.
Sorry, so just before you go any further, so then you are saying that it's not necessary for it to be in the bylaw?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And the reason I'm asking that is on item number 1, under this, your recommendations, it says all pools, old and new, should be required to have fencing on all 3 sides and a gate that is self-closing, self-latching, and locked when the pool is not in use. Would you consider that to be around the pool or around the yard?
So the 3 sides is the
but you're also saying and new.
Yes. So all the swimming pools that have been built in the city of Hamilton have gone for a permit at one point or another.
Right.
And I'm sure, just as other municipalities, the heights of the fences have changed over the last 40 years. So, but the city of Hamilton has always only had the 3-sided or the boundary fence, which is what is the fence. If your yard is fenced before you have a pool, it's a boundary fence. When you apply for a swimming pool fence permit, you are changing that, as long as it complies to the fencing bylaws, you're changing that boundary fence to a pool fence, and that's it.
Okay, no, so I appreciate the clarity, but, you know, I think what I'm...
Is you want more, it needs to be clearer on our...
I would, to me, it's just not entirely clear, but thank you for your answers.
Okay.
Councillor Skelly.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. I just have one question, and that is how much money the industry spends on education.
Geez, that's a good... I'll let Rob answer this.
On that one. Per year, we have probably in the neighborhood of $50,000 and $60,000 going towards these type of things. Normally share with the communities, like you saw the sample clip from Ottawa. There's one that was done in London. The clip from Ottawa, local TV, out in Vancouver Island. City puts in, we put in. So in the case of appear in cinemas for 3 months.
Correct around the table. Thank you, everyone. May I have a motion to Councillor Aidan Johnson, all in favor? Thank you. On this item, may I have a motion on the report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to put, just test the waters here and put a motion for one of the alternatives for consideration by Councillor Robert Pasuta.
Report here. Thank you. Report alternate B says another alternative would be to amend the proposed pool enclosure bylaw to remove the fence requirement and only require a fence around the backyard as per the current pool enclosure bylaw. This would allow the remaining content. So that motion has that.
Alternative B.
Alternative B. Okay, so I'm going to ask all in favor? Opposed? I'm going to go to Councillor Farr to move staff recommendation. Moved by Councillor Farr, second by Councillor Connolly. All in favor? Carried. Carried. Councillor Partridge and Councillor Pasuta recorded as opposed. The second one. Thank you, everyone. Staff. And hopefully one life taking care of it. Thank you. In Hamilton, you have a motion to present to us today. Sir?
But I'm interested in information trucks that we have. Staff has any information? Are there any issues in the bylaw that to be addressed in terms of that we may have found? But I think just in observation that it's been but I certainly would like to know that.
Appreciate that. So Councillor Collins, second by Councillor Farr, all in favor? Carried. Carried. Thank you. From the outstanding business list, which is the item that Matthew Green, that we amend the outstanding business list and remove item. Carried. Thank you, everyone. We have a private and confidential item before us. I don't know if we need to go in camera or not, so I'm just going to read. It's the Strathcona Secondary Plan Appeal to Mandarino of UOPA number. That's you.
I'm satisfied, but if my colleagues have questions, I'm pleased to go into camera.
Motion to approve the staff recommendations and direction. And Councillor Johnson, Councillor Connolly moving that. All in favor? Thank you, everyone. Before we move for adjournment, I'm going to turn to Councillor Judy Partridge.
because they have
because obviously a crossbow doesn't travel as far as a normal gun. So we are looking at the definitions. We don't have any recommendations for you at this time. We are kicking a number of things around, but certainly before we come back to you, there'd be a lot of stakeholder consultation with the affected groups. You're right, there is miscommunication on what we are looking at. Again, primarily the exercise is to look at the urban boundaries to see where it's not appropriate any longer to discharge a weapon. And we are in the stages of talking to our communications officer to maybe get some media releases out there to try and explain to the public really what this exercise is about.
And thank you. I think that would certainly be most appreciated by our offices. And I will tell you, within Ward 15, I do have, one Olympic contender who is in representing Canada, and I have another one who is in the world's right. So, we need to be really, really careful and start managing that message that's out there, because the message that's out there is far from accurate, and we need to deal with that. And I will also, so just to clarify then, what's coming forward in May will be an information report.
Madam Chair, we plan to give you an information report, an update to let you know the status of our consultation, and because we do plan on getting into the actual stakeholder consultation over the summer with those affected groups that are expressing concern about the changes now. So we wanted you to know before we get into that process what we're up to.
Okay, and thank you very much for that, because I'm hearing there's going to be 400 to 500 people filling these chambers in May as a result. I should also just pass on to you, it's been brought to my attention that the Anglers and Hunters Association has now sent out 25,000 letters to all of their membership, instructing them, Marty, let me just repeat that. The Anglers and Hunters Association has now sent out 25,000 letters to membership requesting everyone contact the City of Hamilton. So I think your staff's going to be a little busy over the next few months. But I do appreciate the update. And one final question. In terms of the communication that you're working on from your department that could be sent out as a press release, or certainly for us to put, councillors to put up on their website, when will that be available, please?
Madam Chair, we're working on it as we speak. We're hoping to have that ready in the next couple of days.
If you could please send drafts to our offices for those of us in the rural area, well, actually to all councillors, we should really have that to have the proper communication out there. And thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate your indulgence.
My pleasure, Councillor. Appreciate you raising the issue. Councillor Pasuda, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair Pearson. And yes, I attended. Last night I had a farmers market board meeting here, and I stayed because we had to go on camera on something. And I got to Ancaster, to the town hall there, and to this meeting a little late. They were demanding where the Flamborough councillors were. I went through the crowd. There was 200 or more people in that little room there in the Murray Ferguson room. Yesterday was a difficult day, and Marty was met with Councillor Ferguson and myself and Allison from Councillor Partridge's office and Lynn from my office, and of course Kathy Lloyd Ferguson's administrative assistant. It was all news to me last night, and James was there, and James, you did a good job, Marty. He did a good job with that crowd. So, but it was all new to me yesterday, and tried to explain to people last night, Madam Chair, about this being new, and some took the offense to the fact that, you know what, typically something comes out from the city and there's an agenda and we know about it. But I explained to them, I said it wasn't a city Ferguson's community council meeting. And this got out, and I've never seen anything like this take on fire. It's like Lynn in my office said it was like a grass fire. It just kept going, and the wind was just pushing it along. I wasn't going to say anything much today, but I'm going to ask a couple of questions, if I may, Madam Chair. So, the boundary expansions, planning staff is working on these boundary expansions. Marty, or if I can ask you, Madam Chair, to Marty or Steve or whoever, please.
So, Madam Chair, we have worked with, excuse me, planning staff to identify where the areas are going to become more urbanized so that we can adjust the boundaries appropriately. So they have provided information for this report.
Okay, so Madam Chair, I mean, like last night, Linden, really that's only bar I got a drinking hole in the whole ward down there, and the Legion does great stuff. And I have 2 restaurants in the whole ward, and that's it, little restaurants. But the Linden Legion, they have a turkey shoot there every year to raise funds for the Legion. And according to the mapping, and I didn't really look at it closely, I'm just throwing this out down there, that now they can't do this even at the Legion anymore. And that's created a lot of concern. I don't know if that's, and it's out in the country, more or less, so, Madam Chair.
So through Madam Chair, it was very hard for us to look at those small maps in the office yesterday. So our plan is to blow them up and come down and sit with each individual councillor that's affected and go over the exact specific alignment of the boundaries in your wards. And I think we have a meeting in your office next week.
Yes, I asked for that this morning with Councillor Partridge and having Councillor Ferguson there too, I think. So it's just, in my ward, there has been no urban expansion or expansion of settlement areas other than Greensville, which would allow hunting in there anyhow. But the rest of it, nothing has really changed out there. I don't want to see anything changed. I'm just giving that heads up. Complaints in my 9 years and how many ever months I've sat around this horseshoe. Last year or so has been really frustrating, and the last few weeks really, really frustrating. This one thrown at me down here. I've only had 1 complaint. And it was way out in the country even. It had nothing to do even near any settlement area in all those years. And it was just 2 neighbors butting heads. So just want to throw that out there. But it's taken on a path of its own, and it is just nasty out there, honest to God. Trying to quiet down. I don't do social media. I don't want to do social media. I've got enough on my plate right now. But I'll tell you, we got lots of phone calls, and rumor in the country sure spreads. And it was actually was factual that the meeting was going to happen, but it was not a city-sanctioned meeting, and I don't seem to understand that. No. The problem.
Thank you, Councillor. Well, it is a problem, and I guess we have to address it. And if I recall correctly, I think Councillor Johnson raised this when the recommendation came for the review as issues in her ward where you have the new housing abutting the rural area. So you had hunters actually almost in someone's backyard. And you say, well, but they're not. But the difference between that is what I thought was being reviewed, so that there is a safe distance buffer, that we're not trying to get away from people doing things, but being able to make sure that the residents
Ward, and we have worked quite closely with Councillor Johnson. Had I think 2 community meetings. The changes will be in that ward because of the urbanization.
I do want to remember, Council. Board, and I know you're going to give us an update on the Pier 7 and 8.
That is correct, Madam Chairman. As I indicated at the last Planning Committee meeting, planning staff will be bringing forward the urban design guidelines for Pier 7 and 8 to the May 17th Planning Committee meeting. Because of the level of interest in the document, as well as the complexity of the document, in order to give people an opportunity to review the document and understand it in advance of that meeting, staff are asking for permission to release the document on May 2nd. We will be having an information open house on that night in which we will be able to present the document and provide an overview of it in advance of that Planning Committee meeting on May 17th. So what I'm asking for is permission to release the draft document, and then
Chair, to Steve. Thanks for the update, Steve. What about the West Harbour Committee? Will it be presented any time between the 2nd and the 17th? Will we be meeting?
Through you, Madam Chairman, yes, that is correct. I believe they are meeting on either the 8th or the 5th. Sorry, they are meeting on May 5th, at which time that document will be presented to the West Harbour Committee on that meeting on May 5th.
Urban design document through you.
Through you, Madam Chairman, that is correct. It is the urban design guidelines that will then inform future development in that area.
Okay. No, that's fine. Is there any staff here that has been at the monthly or engagements sessions, I don't see anybody. Okay. Been?
I've been at a few of them,
Have you been?
but not every single one.
Were you at last Thursday's?
Yes. Prior to last Thursday, no. Last fall.
Okay, you know what? I think we could save it. Any questions I may have, probably in more detail, would be on May 5th, and I'll obviously be attending, as I have for each of the open houses on May the 2nd. So I think we're going to leave it for now, and I appreciate the update, Steve.
Thank you. I have Councillor Aidan Johnson and Councillor Collins.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The past few months have been a deep education for me about the West Harbour, and I'm looking forward to hearing the public delegations. I just want to clarify, it's my understanding that there will be a lot of them, have the choice of either delegating to planning, the May 5th West Harbour Committee, and I want, rather than have 1,000 delegations to planning, I think it would be a good thing, dialogue with those who are interested in delegating, perhaps encourage them to delegate to West Harbour Committee on could possibly communicate that to people. They have a choice.
Big turn. Steve, you can clarify. It has to come here. Right, it has to come here.
Subject to the clerk's confirming, I believe that this would be the proper forum to provide the delegations on that document through the Planning Committee.
Okay. I wonder if it's inappropriate to ask the following. I want to ask for confirmation about current staff thinking about what's going to be in the report vis Barton Tiffany lands. But before I ask my question, is there a good to staff? Is there a good reason to not ask that question at this juncture?
Through you, Madam Chairman, I'm not sure the nature of the question as it relates to Barton and Tiffany. Are you in terms of design guidelines, zoning, disposition? I'm not sure what specific topic is the matter you wanted to inquire about.
So, pursuant to Councillor Farr's remarks, rather than go down that road, I'll wait for the designated time. And I'll continue to have my offline conversations, and I thank the whole staff for them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Collins.
Thanks, Madam Chairman. And I want to be clear that I've attended, I think, the last public events related to the urban design study. And much of the discussion, at least for the meetings that I've attended, and even some of the informal discussions that took place prior to and after some of those meetings, had little to do with the urban design initiative. Much of it had to do with past issues that we dealt with on the waterfront and or affordable housing. I don't say that in the context of it being a bad thing. Discussion about any of those issues in terms of providing suggestions in terms of how we improve upon those documents and or those files are always appreciated and welcome. However, to be clear, when the urban design guidelines are in front of us, they are specifically for certain parcels of land, and they only deal with certain issues. So can I get an understanding from Steve in terms of what to expect as it relates to the scope of the review of the urban guideline, or the urban design guidelines associated with the waterfront file in terms of the lands that it will affect and the criteria within the file that will be open for discussion for people to come in. So I say that in the context of we may have a number of people in front of us who want to talk about other things unrelated to urban design guidelines. There's probably better forums for them to rather than the day that we entertain that file. So I know there's a lot of questions wrapped up into that request of Steve there, but I think he understands the discussions we've had, as does Mr. Thorne. Through you, Madam Chairman, the Ward Councillor is correct. The purpose of the urban design guidelines is not to get into a discussion or to set a vision or to discuss land use, but the purpose of the guidelines is to guide the physical development of the site and to inform either through the development of the zoning regulations and or at the site plan stage how the buildings will look, how they will be laid out on the site, through direct zoning regulations, setbacks, building materials, et cetera, either to be implemented at the and or through the site plan stage. The broad vision to the secondary planning process, the urban design guidelines implementation document and used, and then sort of urban design guidelines, and then how do those urban design guidelines get implemented on a go-forward basis. So we will be making sure that people understand what is the purpose of the urban design guidelines and how they are being used, and what the purpose of the public consultation on those urban design guidelines is for.
Thank you, Steve.
Just a real quick question. I'll turn the chair over to Councillor Johnson. Steve, will the report that's going to be released on the 2nd be provided the councillors beforehand?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, that is correct. All the members of Planning Committee and Council will be receiving the report at or in advance of the public release, no later than May 2nd.
Wonderful. Thank you. Seeing that we are done and concluded, I'll take the chair back. Planning Committee today, may I please have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councillor Eden Johnson, second by Councillor Skelly. All in favor? Thank you, everyone. Okay.